Imagine if you were to reincarnate in a world where society's roles were reversed. The men who were supposed to provide for the household were now taking care of it. Now it was the women who harassed men on the street, whistling at them. And to make matters worse, our protagonist ends up reincarnating in a fat body. Would he be attractive enough to survive in this jungle of crazy women? This is the story of the chubby guy who trained and became a Giga Chad to dominate this inverted world.
Why are you gay? You are gay.
Our story begins with a chubby boy sitting on his bed, astonished by what he sees on his phone. He has been reborn in this world, but it seems that the social roles of men and women are reversed. At this moment, it has already been 2 days since he arrived in this world, but he still hasn't gotten used to this fat body. In his past life, he was a famous alpha male emperor. However, now he is in a world where men are being mugged in the streets by girls. Women have the role of giving birth, but it is the men who take care of the child and the house. Besides all this being strange, the spiritual energy of this world is low, and it won't be easy to regain his power, so he might be forced to wash dishes and be submissive to women. In his past life, he fought a very powerful demon, and both lost their bodies. It seems that only his soul survived and ended up reviving. Now he is in the body of Lin Mo, a rich and spoiled boy from a private school. Thoughtful, he wonders if that demon also revived, so he must live as Lin Mo until he regains his strength. That's why even an emperor needs to go to school. Looking around, he assumes that his family isn't too bad. Still, that house is smaller than his last fish tank. In his memories, it seemed that his parents died in an accident, and his grandmother was in the hospital with advanced Alzheimer's. His distant aunt took on the role of guardian after being abandoned, and along with her, his family also moved. Before he knew it, everything that belonged to him was already his aunt's, and his quality of life had decreased. Walking through the house, the boy approaches a table. The one with the hair that looked like a cow had licked it was named Ying Jun, and the other was Zixuan. The boy's aunt appears, saying he arrived just in time to discuss his studies and that Yan Hui was right, mentioning that school was a joke. Hearing the name his aunt mentioned, the boy becomes thoughtful. In his body's memories, his grandmother organized a wedding for him before she had Alzheimer's, and the girl's name was the same. However, she was shocked when she learned about it, disdainfully asking how he could go out as someone fat like him. While crossing the street, he was accidentally hit by a truck. When that happened, his aunt canceled the wedding, thinking that it was incredible because the emperor of his generation would have to marry someone from that world by another woman's decision. Still in the kitchen, his aunt asks if he is listening to her. The boy says it was nothing, telling her not to arrange another marriage for him. Observing Lin's expression, the woman thinks he seems different. Unexpectedly, there seemed to be a feeling of inexplicable tyranny. Then Lin sits at the table, thinking that he hasn't had an appetite since he started his diet. But for that body not to starve, he should take it easy. Picking up a piece of food, he thinks it smells good. Then his cousin asks why he wasn't going to study abroad since his classmates knew how much he expressed his love for others. Lin wonders why he needed to talk to those insects when this emperor reigned for thousands of years. Still, now it was necessary to play the role of a normal person, saying he wouldn't go now because he was happy with that school. The boy says it didn't matter which school he attended as long as he got good grades. Continuing to eat, Lin thinks he didn't want to talk to him. An hour later, the protagonist was inside a car, and the person driving informed them that they had arrived. His cousin, in turn, asks Lin not to get out with him. With a look of disdain, the protagonist observes him, leaving the boy scared by that look. Then he got out of the car, frustrated. Next, Lin was already in front of a building. Mentioning that the architecture of that world was excellent, however, there were some problems. Each of those men stood out a lot since they showed their pale legs and even made gestures like girls, but at least the women seemed normal. In the background, 2 girls were teasing the protagonist's brother, saying that his legs were beautiful. With disdain, the boy thinks that it was unpleasant enough to almost make him vomit. However, he should forget about it because he didn't know if that demon was still alive. Plus, he needed to strengthen his body before she appeared. As he walked through the school, Lin finds his classroom. In the background, someone seemed to mock the protagonist, saying that his fiancée was there. His wife was sitting at the table while 2 girls were talking to her. Observing the protagonist, she didn't seem to like his presence. Lin thinks it's incredible how unbearable mortals can be. The boy, heading towards his desk, leaves Yan Hui confused. While sitting down, he thinks about how he could resume his cultivation in some way. Someone taps him on the shoulder, saying he should believe her when she said he couldn't like her. This was a girl with red hair giving him advice. Remembering the girl, Lin thinks she must be the classmate of that body. Continuing to speak, the girl questions how he could like someone from the 2nd class. Noticing Lin still quiet, she assumes she has spoken too much, saying that there was still a chance with Yan Hui, who might like him if he lost a bit of weight. Then the protagonist asks her to just say what she wanted to say. The girl asks how he knew she was plotting something, and Lin mentions that she wasn't that kind. Next, the girl really wanted to ask him a favor, requesting to play a game with her, saying it wouldn't take long, and as a reward, she would introduce him to a girl more beautiful than Yanhui. There is a mountain that cannot be reached alone, but she had contacts to help climb directly, so she was thinking of going during the summer, mentioning that the place was impressive at night and he would regret refusing to go there. Lin thinks of a rumor that high mountains attract spiritual energy, and that mountain was the closest in the region, so there was a high chance it had energy at the top. Also, it was a great opportunity for that body to lose weight by climbing the mountain. Accepting the proposal, he mentions that he wasn't good at games, making her happy. The girl says they would have a match against an idiot from class 3 who loves to pretend to be good. So after class, they could use the computers in the computer club. Sometime later, in the computer room, the girl mentions that she had reserved the room just for them, so no one would bother them. Sitting in the chair, she asks Lin to connect to a user. Then the protagonist enters his password, successfully logging into his account. Inside the game, the boy, looking at a window, says it was a competitive action game with an immortal theme. That girl appears, saying she had called the boss of that realm because he would help them. Then the boss appears, mentioning that she had indeed brought a man, apparently liking the protagonist because he was a classmate of her friend. Cutting the mood, she says she would start the 3 versus 3 PvP mode. Starting to run, the girl asks them to be quiet while she would take down the enemy group. Then the protagonist's friend asks him to hide while she goes to check. Lin thinks that only legendary beings from his world can be immortal, but cultivation and everything from his world was similar to the game, assuming there was a probability that there were immortals in that world, so he should be careful. While sitting, a notification appears that someone had died. That girl from before appears, apparently stressed. Starting to run again, she says she made a mistake and now would take revenge. However, she ends up dying again, repeating the cycle of running again, but now the protagonist's friend would help. Even so, it was of no use. Outside the game, the protagonist's friend is furious because even the boss of that realm couldn't defeat that person, telling the protagonist to be careful because Flying Feather was on the way, but Lin was completely calm. While running, the boy thinks he had developed his fighting instincts over thousands of years, capable of using them even in games. Throughout all this, the other team was still behind the protagonist while 2 girls fawned over the person playing. Then the girl says he couldn't escape from her. Looking back, Lin realizes someone is following him. Stopping to run, he thinks it was an emperor, and that's why he had never been chased. Noticing that Lin had seen her, the woman quickly hides. The protagonist, in turn, asserts that it was a quick reaction and that body couldn't win since attacks in that game were hard to use. Outside the game, Lin seemed to be using a skill. The woman observing the protagonist mentions that he was a novice who had no idea where he was. So that was a positive point going against the boy. Quickly, Lin uses the keyboard and mouse, launching an attack on the woman. Suddenly it hits her where a notification of a dead player appears. On the other side, they were surprised that the protagonist had managed to win. Getting up from the chair, Lin's friend says she didn't know he was so good. Noticing him motionless, she questions if everything is okay. Lin thinks he had no idea a body like that could be so damaged by a simple use of spiritual energy. Returning to the game, one of his friends asks to go back, but she no longer had time, thinking she had finally found him, wondering why he always kept running away. But this time she would kill him, going after the protagonist. Meanwhile, the boy ran without stopping. Noticing that the girl had found him again, he thinks he should boost the lower part of his body again, throwing his sword towards the woman. Then she questions if the boy wanted to hit her from so far away. At that moment, her leg gets hit, where she ends up falling to the ground. Looking at the sword in her leg, she wonders if that was a warning to stop following him. Outside the game, one of her friends says they should stop chasing him. The girl, in turn, asks if she knew the other side, asking to contact them right now. Sitting in the chair, she murmurs the protagonist's name. On the other side, the protagonist's friend receives a call from those girls wanting to see her. Approaching Lin, his friend says he was amazing, suggesting to play a few more matches, but the boy didn't want to play anymore, asking her not to forget the promise he had made before. Sometime later, Lin was already near his house. Inside his room, the boy lies down, mentioning that his body was very fragile. The next day, while going to school, his cousin calls him, asking him to explain to his classmates that the marriage with Yan Hui was not real. Then the protagonist says there was no need to explain what was false. As he was leaving, his cousin says he was very arrogant. Inside the classroom, his friend notices his presence, asking if he knew who that girl from before named Zhao Yutang was, mentioning that, incredibly, she was from his school. It seemed he had been through a lot since he lost his love, mentioning that the girl wanted to see him and he didn't need to worry because she wouldn't do anything to a guy. But before he could finish the sentence, with a threatening look, the protagonist watches him. Suddenly, he doesn't complete the sentence, mentioning that it wasn't Momo baby. Then a girl approaches the protagonist's table. That was Yan Hui saying they needed to clarify things and he should say it was just a fake marriage. Lin's friend says she was going too far. After all, Lin Mo was just a boy and should have more compassion. The girl questions what that had to do with anything and if she liked the protagonist. Jumping into the conversation, the boy says that whether it was true or false, there was no possibility of him being with the girl, asking her to leave. Yan Hui says he was being too full of himself and didn't know how much that bothered her, so he should never say he would marry again. The boy in the background says Lin was very strong because he hadn't cried yet, and the other guy says that if it were him, he would leave school immediately. Then someone enters the room. That was the girl he had lost to before, accompanied by 2 more people. The people in the background mentioned that was Zhao Yutang. Rumors said she caused a lot of trouble, and everyone who got involved with her dropped out of school. Approaching Lin, the girl calls the protagonist. Apparently, Yan Hui was her sister, asking if she wanted something. Then the girl calls Momo Baby, which was the protagonist's profile name in the game, telling him to follow her. Meanwhile, Lin, irritated, continued sitting in the chair, thinking he was the emperor and not Momo Baby. In the background, those 2 boys ask how he got close to Yu Tang and why he was being called Momo Baby. His friend, in turn, apologizes because the girl wanted to play with the protagonist alone. She just needed to go out with her and then could do whatever she wanted. Leaving the room, Lin murmurs that those people were very annoying. At the door of his class, Yu Tang was waiting for him, thinking he didn't expect Momo Baby to be a man instead of a woman, claiming that it was fun because back in the day, women fought in combat skirts, but now that had become a norm for them. Then she starts asking Lin several questions, questioning if it was him who defeated her in that game, giving an order to look for him after class because she would duel with him alone. But Lin says she didn't play that game and had only won by luck, saying she would go back to class. Irritated, Yutang wonders if the boy didn't know who she was. Then the other girl states that it was no surprise Lin wasn't afraid of her since there was no more love in her heart because she had been left. Yutang, in turn, gives the order for her to bring the boy at noon. Returning to the classroom, a group of boys asks what Yutang had said to him. Her friend says that the girl had been attracted to the protagonist, so she just wanted to play with him alone, asking not to worry because she would take him to Wuzhou Mountain on the weekend and would arrange for some girls. With a threatening look, Lin tells her not to bring anyone else. Imagining supposedly illicit things, the girl feels embarrassed, saying various things and that she shouldn't be interested in her. Then the other girl appears saying that Yutang was waiting for the protagonist. However, Lin was no longer in the classroom. In the cafeteria, Lin was eating while people in the background teased him, saying he ate too much. At the reception, the boy asks the man to wrap it up for the trip. Leaving the place, the protagonist thinks he still hadn't gotten used to that noisy world, and he shouldn't get upset about that. In the background, someone approached the boy, murmuring various things about that body dying in a year and if he wished to survive, he should merge with her, and as a reward, she would fulfill his wishes. As he walked, people around observed his beauty. The woman says she had made the right decision. From now on, her 18 years of life would be part of her, mentioning that it was a pity that all the joys and sorrows they had gone through were just a drop in an ocean for her. After working hard for so long, she managed to defeat the emperor. However, it wasn't the ending she desired, and now the only thing she could do was revive the demon world. But the emperor had many tricks up his sleeve so he wouldn't die easily. Therefore, she should be careful since he could have gone to that world, claiming that that world was very interesting. She had never gained her father's approval in the demon world, no matter how hard she tried, just because she was a woman. Those men belittled her and only wanted to possess her until the day she put on a mask of evil spirits, killing them so they would fear her. However, in that place, men were at a disadvantage, and cultivation wasn't bad despite the spiritual power being scarce. Moreover, she was beautiful enough for men to follow, but it had been a while since that fat guy had been after her, and as a woman, it was good to be direct. Looking back, their gazes met. The girl, in turn, asked him to stop following her because there would be nothing between them. However, our boy walked straight past, ignoring the poor girl. Embarrassed, the girl thinks she should regain her strength before leaving that world, mentioning that the boys in that world were very shy, so Lin should have been embarrassed, refusing to admit he was chasing her. That's why she hadn't said anything to avoid embarrassment. Returning to the protagonist, he was apparently bothered, wondering why that girl was following him. Noticing that Lin was going to the terrace, he thinks he should look for another place to be alone, but he remembers that normal students never went to that place. The people in that world are spiritually and physically weak, questioning if Lin would jump off the terrace. However, that was none of his business. Even so, he still felt bothered, remembering that the friend of the owner of his original body had also jumped from a building. Heading towards the terrace, he thinks he would fulfill that body's will. Reaching the top of the building, he sees the protagonist at the edge of the terrace. Then he uses a skill to immobilize him. However, he had forgotten that he had no spiritual power. Meanwhile, Lin calmly thinks that it was quite cold up there, so it would be better to go down for lunch. Then that girl appears, asking the protagonist to wait. While grabbing his stomach, Lin asks what she was doing. Lifting the boy, she asks the protagonist to come down. But she is surprised by the boy's weight, falling to the ground with him, where she even ends up breaking a rib. On top of her, Lin says he didn't even have time to respond. Questioning what she was doing, the girl says she was just helping him because he was going to jump in an isolated place, thinking she had broken a rib because of him. Surprised, Lin thinks the girl thought he was going to jump off the building, assuming it was because in that world, men were fragile while women were strong. Extending his hand to help, asking to control her imagination since he had only gone out for some air and did not intend to jump off the building. Moreover, he was not interested in her, leaving the girl embarrassed, telling him to never show up in front of her again. As Lin leaves, he thinks that the woman had dismissed the help of an emperor without even knowing it, and since she didn't want help, there was nothing he could do. Back in the room, his friend asks where the young man was, mentioning that Yu Tang was looking for him and telling him not to leave after class. The protagonist, in turn, says that all of this was her fault, so she should solve it on her own. But the girl says she would go with him after class to play with Yu Tang, and if she let him win, it should be enough to leave him in peace. Even so, Lin says he wouldn't go, thinking he didn't want to lose to a little girl, even if it was just a game. His friend continues trying to convince the protagonist, but the young man says the problem was hers. The girl says she would do anything for him, but Lin had already decided he wouldn't go. Then his friend thinks she had messed up. Sometime later, the day passes. Getting up, the protagonist says it's time to leave and shouldn't forget his promise on Wuzhu Mountain. As he leaves, Lin remembers something. Recalling that he had fallen on that girl, wondering if she was okay. The human body is very fragile, so she probably ended up breaking a few ribs. Since human lives in that world were precious, he could end up getting arrested, which would cause a huge problem. Looking for the girl, Lin thinks he should check. Meanwhile, she was still on the terrace, claiming that her body was very weak and she couldn't get up. Moreover, it was very windy and she was hungry. Thinking even about screaming for help but wouldn't do that even if she died, she didn't expect that could happen. An invincible demon who defeated the emperor was brought down by a fat guy. Then someone approaches the girl. Realizing it was Lin, the girl questions why he came back. Kneeling, the protagonist observes her, thinking that she didn't seem to be well. Then he places his hand on her back, saying that she had broken a few ribs, mentioning that she was very weak and needed to exercise, but the girl says that happened only because of him. While Lin takes off his suit, the Empress, embarrassed, asks what the protagonist is going to do. Covering her, the young man mentions that it was windy on the terrace, asking her to wear his suit. Making a call, he says he's going to call an ambulance. But the Empress says she didn't need his jacket. The protagonist already knew she didn't want to wear his jacket because she was fat, but she should remember that her body was fragile and could take it off when the ambulance arrived. However, for the girl, it wasn't for that reason, as she didn't expect the protagonist to be so kind. This world has a beauty standard for men, thinking she didn't know why Lin helped her, but would keep an eye on him anyway. Sometime later, the ambulance arrives. While the Empress was on the stretcher, two girls notice that commotion. Embarrassed, the girl thinks she would never forget that day. At night, the protagonist was already near his house. Entering, his cousin asks why Yu Tang had gone to talk to him. Then Lin says he would only say that once. Zixuan, in turn, thinks that fat guy had a sharp look, mentioning that he had been more aggressive lately, saying that Yu Tang must not have gone after him of his own will and must have gotten into some trouble. Because of that, he would ask his mother to kick him out of the house. Then Lin, questioning what he was talking about, mentions that this was his house. Zixuan, about to slap the boy, says he had asked for it. With no effort, Lin holds his hand. While squeezing his arm, he thinks he was very weak. So weak that it wasn't worth continuing with that. Fallen on the ground, the boy says that it hurt, going to tell his father that Lin had hit him. Appearing in the kitchen, his father asks how he dared to hit his cousin, saying he would take care of him. However, with no effort, the protagonist also holds the man's hand, surprised that Lin Mo had held him so easily. Lin, in turn, says he would give him a piece of advice to never mess with him. Crying, the guy says he was an abuser, calling the protagonist's aunt, saying he was causing trouble. Arriving in the living room, she tells them to be quiet. Staring at Lin, she thinks the boy was different, saying she didn't want to know what happened and it was just to apologize to her uncle. Lin, in turn, thinks she was the first person to ask an emperor to apologize, saying that he wasn't wrong and therefore wouldn't apologize. However, she says that if he didn't apologize, he wouldn't receive his vacation allowance. But the boy says he didn't need that. Entering the room, Lin wonders if she was talking about money. remembering that if he didn't have it, there would be no way to go to Wuzu Mountain. There was nothing to sell in that house, plus he had no savings. Thinking about selling some clothes and shoes, Lin opens his computer, surprised because a buyer arrived so quickly. 3 girls in the comments of the post were asking personal questions and if he still had the smell. Surprised, the protagonist thinks he has never been afraid, not even of demons, but those women scared him. Even so, he would sell to make money, wondering why money was the first problem since he should first recover his strength. The body is the foundation of cultivation, and if he could absorb spiritual energy, money wouldn't matter. A few minutes later, the boy was completely exhausted and without spiritual power. The body couldn't take it, so he should forge his body from scratch. Then he receives a call from his friend, saying she wanted to talk about Wuzu Mountain, mentioning that her friend said he would go there and if it wouldn't be better to go another day. Lin says it's no problem and they could go anyway, then the girl says the bus would leave in the morning so they shouldn't be late. The next day, the protagonist goes to the table to have breakfast. Zixuan asks why he woke up early and if Yanhui didn't ask to go out with him. However, the boy remains silent. His cousin, in his thoughts, questions why he wasn't responding and if he was planning something, saying he could continue eating like a beggar because his bus had arrived. Near the bus, Yanhui calls the boy, saying she was scared and that they should get in quickly. Inside the bus, she says Lin was different since she had rejected him, mentioning that last night she had pushed him while arguing with her father. Yanhui in turn says she always knew it wasn't a good idea to take Lin to Wuju Mountain, claiming he would go too, and the other girl says he looks like a whale's pacifier, so he wouldn't be able to climb. Then the protagonist's friend appears, saying they were in the same class and shouldn't talk about him like that. The girl thinks she didn't expect Lin to come, but he wasn't afraid of Yanhui, so she would stay with him so he wouldn't feel alone. Then Lin appears on the bus. As he goes to his seat, Yanhui stops the protagonist, asking why he pushed Zixuan. Interfering in the conversation, the protagonist's friend says it must be a misunderstanding because Lin was a calm person, calling the boy to go to the front of the bus because there was a beautiful view. At the front of the bus, she asks the driver to stop at the next place to pick up the other person. The protagonist, in turn, hopes that when they arrive at Wuju Mountain, he won't be disappointed. Looking to the side, he notices a girl riding a motorcycle, stopping the motorcycle in front of the bus. Suddenly, the bus is forced to brake. Removing her helmet, it was Yu Tang. The protagonist's friend gets nervous, fearing she stopped the bus to go after Lin Mo. Getting out of her seat, she says she would talk to her, questioning what she was doing there, and Yu Tang says she was looking for that fat guy. Noticing Lin, the girl mentions that if it weren't for his size, she would never have noticed him. Then everyone starts laughing at the protagonist's face. Yu Tang tells him not to go to Huzu Mountain and that it would be better to go with her to play video games, and if he did that, he could make his girlfriend come back. But the boy didn't want to hear that, asking her to leave him alone. Then Yu Tang asks if she was bothering him, thinking that if it weren't for him, she would never have lost even once in her life, questioning whether he would go with her or not. Then Lin seems to be surprised, noticing that the girl's necklace had a bit of aura, thinking that his refining technique was a bit poor, but that was something difficult to develop in this world, wondering if there were still cultivators, saying he would play with her when he finished climbing the mountain. Then the protagonist's friend suggests that everyone should go to the mountain. Yu Tang asks if Lin was really willing to climb that place. It seems he wasn't popular, besides being fat, so she would watch him try to climb that mountain. Meanwhile, another guy appears saying he had space in his seat, suggesting she sit next to him. But the girl didn't want to know, calling one of her friends to watch her motorcycle, questioning if Lin had that game because it was to play with her now. However, the protagonist says that if he won, he wanted something in return. Accepting the offer, Yu Tang says that if he lost, he should be his servant forever, ignoring another guy while talking to Lin. Then the other man asks Zixuan if Lin was good at games and why Yu Tang insisted on playing with him. Zixuan, in turn, thinks he had no idea what was happening and the protagonist was a nuisance. Returning to Lin, the boy was playing with Yu Tang that game from before. Noticing an opening, he prepares an attack. Yu Tang is surprised because he was trying to attack him at high speed. Receiving the attack head-on, the system informs that the victory belonged to Momo Baby. Out of the game, Yu Tang still couldn't believe he lost, questioning how he managed to have such incredible precision, but the protagonist says that every movement he made was calculated and that game is very easy. Then the girl thinks he was a genius, but little did she know he was using his cultivation to stimulate his brain. Since Lin had won, she should ask for what she wanted. Lin, in turn, asks for 10,000 in money. Yu Tang asks if that was all because whenever he wanted, he could force his ex-fiancée to come back with him, and if he was willing, he should become his training partner from today. Ignoring the girl, Lin still asks for the transfer, thinking she had managed to get the money to forge that body. Taking out his phone, Yu Tang makes the transfer. In addition, he added his phone number so she should answer if she called him, but she shouldn't call him or even give his number to anyone. The protagonist thinks that not even as an emperor did he have an arrogance equal to hers. Getting up from the chair, the girl says there was very little space, giving an order for Yan Hui to move forward, leaving the girl nervous, thinking he was doing that after so much effort to sit next to Zixuan. Getting up, Yutang tells her to hurry up. Yan Hui thinks about reprimanding her sister but couldn't do that in front of everyone. Then Zixuan says that Lin wanted to say something to her and that she should see what it was. Getting up, the girl goes towards the protagonist. In his thoughts, the boy is happy because he could sit next to Yutang. Trying to introduce himself to the girl, Zixuan only gets a sharp cut with Yutang telling him to shut up. Thinking that if he had known that boy was so unbearable and wore so much perfume, he would have preferred to sit with the protagonist. Arriving at Wuzhu Mountain, the students are surprised by how high the place is. Then the protagonist's friend tells everyone to follow and not fall behind. Half an hour later, Lin Mo, observing those boys, thinks they were much worse than him. When he managed to recover his powers, he would punish them every day for centuries. The protagonist's friend, noticing that there was no one to help him, thinks she couldn't help him because if someone saw her with him, she might end up receiving strange looks. 20 minutes later, Lin Mo was still climbing the mountain. Thinking he couldn't go on because he had the least stamina in the group, those boys seemed quite delicate but were actually in good shape. Noticing that Lin couldn't take it anymore, his friend thinks that since she was the one who brought him to that place, she should help him, questioning if the boy needed help. But Lin Mo says she could continue on her way, because he could still keep going, thinking that this fatigue was nothing compared to the things he went through in his previous life. The protagonist's friend wonders why she was putting in so much effort for this, saying she would go ahead, and if she couldn't climb anymore, she could let him know. The people in the background are surprised because the protagonist had already managed to climb halfway. The other boys, already exhausted, couldn't continue on the path. While thinking of giving up, Lin Mo, determined, continues to climb. The protagonist, near the top, notices a group of people coming back. The other girl is surprised because he managed to get there alone and was very resilient. The protagonist's friend, saying it was very high, thinks they should go back and go to a restaurant. However, Lin says they could go because he would reach the top. Irritated, his friend questions if he wanted to die, but the other girl tells her to just let him go. 20 minutes later, the boy finally reaches the top of the mountain. Yutang, who was already at the top, is surprised that he actually managed to climb. But it was a pity he fell behind most of the time, and when he managed to climb, the others had already come back, besides being alone the whole time. Looking up, the boy observes the stars. Thinking that, up there was a lot of chi, although it was little to recover his power, at least he could start training. With that, he would already be ahead of that venerable demon. As long as there was an opportunity to train, no matter the time, he would always go back up there. Then Yutang puts a hand on his shoulder, asking what he was doing, and the protagonist says he was just looking at the scenery. The girl thinks he is very annoying, besides speaking little, and the protagonist in his thoughts affirms that in his world as an emperor, he would have killed her several times. Then Yutang tells him to get down because that place was hers now. Lin mentions that he was very tired, so he should help him down. Yutang says she wouldn't bother him anymore that day, handing a snack to the protagonist. From now on, she would be his companion, and since she was bored, she would go down first. Opening the paper, he realizes that it was leftovers from the girl's snack, mentioning that in his previous life he had eaten several beast corpses, so that was nothing special. Sitting down to meditate, the boy thinks he should start by cleaning the marrow. Sometime later, it starts to get dark. The protagonist's friend, on a call with him, asks if the boy really wasn't coming back. Lin Mo says that place was pleasant and that's why he would stay during the holidays. Messing with his phone, he thinks he should inform his aunt. Calling her without any ceremony, he immediately says he would be away for a few days during the holidays. Hanging up, the attendant asks what he could do for the protagonist. Then the young man asks how much a single room would cost for 2 months, and the man says it was 8,000 yen. Thus, Lin Mo continued his training during the holidays. Day after day, climbing the mountain without stopping. The training was rigorous, but the fruits would be worth it. Then 2 months pass, and the protagonist's friend informs him that she was arriving and if his bags were ready. Thinking that she hadn't been able to talk to him during the holidays, and because of that, Yutang was always bothering her. That's why she had to take him to Yutang, no matter the circumstances. Meanwhile, Lin Mo looked at himself in the mirror, thinking that after 2 months, the spiritual energy in his body was still weak. Appearing all gigachad, he says he should still continue being a mediocre student. Sometime later, the protagonist's friend says she finally managed to find him. But when she looks at the boy, she is surprised by his beauty, assuming she had confused him with another boy, imagining having a family with that man. With a look of remorse, the protagonist notices the girl staring at him. Embarrassed, she starts to walk away, thinking that the protagonist must think she was a pervert. Then Lin asks where she was going because she hadn't made a mistake. The girl in turn questions if he was a friend of Lin Mo. However, she says he was Lin Mo. However, she doesn't believe his words, assuming they just had the same name. But the protagonist says he had only lost some weight, asking why she was so surprised. However, the boy had changed drastically. Everything about him was completely different. Picking up the bags, Lin says they should go. Then the girl thinks that by his cold look and way of speaking, he was definitely Lin Mo. Thinking that she wasn't dreaming and that the boy had changed a lot, affirming that it was worth it not to have treated him badly in the past, asking to carry her backpack. However, another girl appears offering help to the protagonist. Quickly, her friend approaches the car, opening the door for the young man. Inside the car, she mentions that he was now very handsome, asking if he had been climbing the mountain all this time. His efforts were definitely worth it, and when Yanhui saw him now, she would regret breaking up with him. That's why now many girls would be nice to him, but he had to understand that all of that was falsehood, so Lin asks her to just shut up. Fearing, her friend wonders if the protagonist hated her for not climbing the mountain with him. If she had been kinder before, he might have fallen in love with her, and they would have had a perfect love. However, there was still an opportunity because she was still the closest to Lin, saying that he must have gone through a lot and that's why they should go out to eat something, but the boy just wanted her to take him home. Sometime later, the young man was already at home, and his friend says she would see him in a few days. Then the other girl asks if she wasn't going to take the protagonist to see Yu Tang. However, Yunshu says she wouldn't take him anymore, thinking she couldn't take a beautiful lamb to the wolf's den. The only thing she needed to do was use Lin's account to play. Then Lin Mo enters his house. The whole family is surprised by his appearance, asking who he was and how he had entered. However, the boy says he was Lin Mo and had just lost weight. Even so, Zixuan doesn't believe it was him because even if he lost weight, he wouldn't be that handsome. Then his mother asks him to stop shouting, asking if the boy had undergone any surgery. The boy mentions that she had all her money, so there was no way to do that, questioning if he would receive his money that semester. His aunt says she would pay all his expenses and also buy a new uniform, but if he did anything bad to his cousin or uncle again, she wouldn't give him another cent. Standing up, Lin says he was already satisfied, and his aunt thinks he really was the protagonist. The next day, the young man was in a car with his cousin going to school. Zixuan asks why the driver was driving slower this time. Then the girl says she would go faster, thinking that she couldn't help but look at the protagonist because he was very handsome. That's why she just wanted to keep watching the boy. Then Lin gets out of the car. Everyone around is surprised by his beauty, wondering who that boy was. His cousin, feeling jealous, questions why Lin was attracting so much attention. Noticing that the girls were taking pictures of him, the young man thinks something wasn't right. Soon after, he enters his classroom. Heading towards his chair, another girl wonders if he was a transfer student. Lin, for his part, thinks he had just lost weight, but just because of that, he was already a bit better than usual. However, normally he wouldn't attract so much attention, questioning if it was because of his aura. At the classroom door, a commotion was happening. Yu Tang, holding the protagonist's friend, says she would give 3 minutes to bring that fat guy to her, but Yunshu says there was no fat guy anymore. The girl mentions that she would regret continuing to lie. Then Yunshu says she would tell where Lin was. Pointing her finger at the protagonist, she says he was Lin who had lost weight during the holidays. Observing the boy, Yu Tang seemed not to believe it. Furious, she says that guy could never be Lin, but Yunshu was telling the truth. The protagonist, for his part, says the girl wasn't lying, saying he could train with her whenever she wanted and to meet after class. Then Yu Tang asks who he was. Again, Yunshu says he was Lin and that he had lost weight during the holidays while climbing Mount Huzu. In her thoughts, Yu Tang wonders if he really was the boy, questioning if he was really that fat guy while the boy asks her not to call him that anymore. Noticing he had the same voice and behavior, she affirms he really was Lin, saying it didn't matter if he was fat or thin because he should wait for her after class. Yunshu says it had been another person who had played with her before, and Lin had only joined to complete the group, which is why the protagonist wasn't very good at games. With a threatening look, Yu Tang watches her, asking if she dared to say Lin didn't know how to play, mentioning that yesterday she had used Lin's account to try to deceive her, and for that, she was the most arrogant person who tried to do that. As she was leaving, Yunshu asks to explain herself, thinking that now Yu Tang would never leave her alone. 2 girls appear asking how she knew it was Lin. Even if it was the boy, there was no way he could have become so handsome, so he must have had some plastic surgery. Then the teacher appears asking everyone to sit in their places because she was going to start the class, saying she was curious to know how their holidays were. However, she ends up being surprised, questioning who that student at the back was. Yunshu, raising her hand, says it was Lin who had lost weight during the holidays. Surprised, the teacher says he had changed a lot and must have worked hard to achieve it, asking if the boy didn't want to sit in the front this semester. Quickly, a girl responds no, mentioning that Yunshu had promised they would switch places with her. The other girl says she had grown a lot during the holidays and should also go to the back. Yunshu thinks they were trying to take her seat, but she wouldn't let that happen. The teacher, asking them to stop arguing, says the first person to change seats would be Yunshu. As two girls pulled her from her seat, the protagonist's friend begs to let her stay in her seat. Another guy asks Zixuan if Lin had had plastic surgery to become so handsome, and the boy replies there was no other way but that. The teacher says the odd numbers would stay in the same position and the even numbers would switch with the adjacent ones, saying that Li Jiang would sit with Lin. The other girl asks if Jiang would really sit with the protagonist. Then the girl says it was fine because she couldn't let Yunshu take him for herself. Looking at his classmate beside him, the young man realizes he was a bit chubby and also calm and quiet. Because of this, there would be no one to disturb him. Yunshu sitting up front, crying for having left her seat. Then Lin Mo stands up from his seat. A group of girls starts to flatter the young man, saying they would be exhausted if they had to climb the mountain every day, and another asks if he could give some advice to her brother. Yunshu thinks they were all fake because when Lin was chubby, no one talked to the boy, saying that, unlike her, she had never treated the protagonist badly when they first met. Lin coldly asks them to get out of his way. Quickly, the girls make space. The other girl says the protagonist looked very handsome when he had that attitude. Noticing Zixuan stressed, the girl mentions he was jealous, but it wouldn't matter because they preferred Lin. Returning to the protagonist, the young man was inside the cafeteria. A girl waves at him saying he could sit in her place because she had to leave, but Lin declines the offer, thinking he wasn't sure if it was safe near those mortals, mentioning that the eyes of those women were nothing less than deceitful. In the background, Yanhui questions if he was really the protagonist. Zixuan asks if she regretted breaking up with him now that he was handsome, and the girl replies that she wasn't that superficial. Another girl appears saying she wanted to go after Lin Mo, asking if she could help him, mentioning that it didn't matter if he had surgery or not because she always liked him for his personality. Then Yanhui calls her a hypocrite. Hearing what she said, she thinks hypocrisy was believing that was plastic, and if she could get Lin's beautiful legs, she wouldn't care if they were fake or not, saying she would go after the boy alone. Meanwhile, Lin Mo was walking through the school. Then Yanhui appears, saying she was there to apologize for everything, mentioning it had been sudden for her and she still didn't want to get married. Accepting the apology, the protagonist walks away. Asking Lin to wait, the young man questions if there was anything else to say, affirming that he truly felt sorry for everything he had said. Lin, continuing to walk, makes Yanhui wonder why he had that cold reaction, supposing she must have been the reason for his change. Outside the school, Lin Mo hopes there is no one on the rooftop. While walking, he encounters the girl who had broken her ribs, wondering if she wanted to steal his spot on the terrace again. Looking back, the girl realizes Lin had been following her for some time, mentioning that he resembled the protagonist, but that man was more handsome. Then Lin passes by the girl, who feels relieved because she thought the young man would talk to her, questioning if he was also going to the rooftop. Reaching the boy, she notices he was climbing the stairs. Quickly, she passes in front of him. Noticing the girl was in a hurry, he wonders if she really wanted to steal his spot, questioning how a mere mortal could want to do that. Their gazes meet, and each perceives the other's intention. Quickly, they start running to protect their spots. The girl thinks the protagonist was very annoying, asking if he shouldn't behave like a gentleman. Also, how could he run so fast, mentioning she just wanted to give him a chance, but if she lost, it would be a disgrace for the women of that world. Meanwhile, a girl was watching that commotion. Returning to the two, the girl asks why Lin was running, and the young man says he wanted to know the same from her. Then she questions why he wasn't running after her, but the young man says he would never do that. Irritated, the woman tells him not to speak to her that way. A boy like him who didn't care about ladies could never get married. Lin Mo wonders how an emperor could think about marriage, a man of high status from a generation of great emperors. Responding that she wasn't kind either because she was fighting just over the terrace. Reaching the rooftop door, the two block the entrance. Suddenly, they start fighting to see who would arrive first. Lin, in turn, thinks he would have to use brute force to clear his way, where he ends up squeezing the girl's breasts, which makes her feel embarrassed. The protagonist, feeling awkward, senses that sensation. He quickly manages to reach the terrace first, saying that from now on that place belonged to him. The girl questions how he dared to do that and if he knew who she was, mentioning that just a moment ago he had done that. Saying he had touched her, the protagonist approaches her, giving a slap to the poor girl, claiming that she had touched him first, thinking that he had almost forgotten that men in that world were fragile and therefore could not act calmly. Then the girl calls the protagonist shameless. Taking her phone, Lin says that if he didn't leave, she would call the police. The girl, in turn, says she was already getting angry. Recording the woman, The young man asks to repeat what she had said before. However, he seems to remember something, recalling that women who hit men in that world were despised. And if she were caught doing that, she could no longer attend that school. Thinking that he had taken advantage of that to hit her, even if she told someone, certainly the one who would be believed was the protagonist. Saying that this time he would leave, but next time he wouldn't lose. Claiming that it was very complicated to deal with men. Lin thinks he was happy to have gotten out of that situation, mentioning that the girl was very annoying. Remembering that there was an update on the news from this morning, he grabs his phone. Looking at the news, he ends up getting surprised. The news reported numerous chickens on a farm suspected of being infected with a virus, which ended up turning into dry corpses. Observing that chicken, Lin Mo seems to recognize it. Recalling that the demon from before had a sword that would suck any creature that touched it down to the bones. But in his final battle, that sword had exploded, and then his sword also exploded trying to protect him, and along with that, he ended up going to that world. Wondering if that demon was really dead. Since to become immortal, Lin had to follow the path of heaven, but she, in return, only had to kill people to gain her power. That's why he had to investigate what was happening. Sometime later, it was already sunset. As Lin was leaving, the girls were still fawning over the protagonist. Yunxin appears saying she would accompany him to Yutang's house, but Lin Mo says it wasn't necessary. Even so, the girl insists on going, mentioning that Yutang and her sister were very dangerous. Telling the story of a time when a boy was tricked by his classmates, which ended in a tragic end. However, the boy thinks he doesn't want to go to that place, asking Yunxin not to get too close to him. But the girl says he was interpreting things wrong. Entering, she is surprised, asking if he wasn't going to meet Yutang again, and the boy says he had more important things to do. Yunshu questions if he didn't know she had been looking for him all vacation, and the young man says they would discuss that later. The girl, in turn, asks him not to worry because she would explain to Yutang the next day. Remembering that if she helped him, Lin might end up thanking her. Meanwhile, the young man was inside a car thinking that Farm was outside the city, and if that demon was there, he would eliminate her even if it damaged his soul. Sometime later, Lin Mo arrives at the location, thinking he still had little soul, but it would be necessary to use it. Apparently, he begins to use a spell. Looking at a house, he notices a demonic chi, thinking that it was extremely strong, assuming that demon had really survived. Looking to the side, he notices someone approaching. A person says they had seen the protagonist from afar. Taking off the helmet, it was Yutang asking what he was doing in the middle of nowhere. Lin, in turn, wonders how she had gotten there, thinking that it couldn't be a coincidence to meet in the middle of nowhere. Saying that she had called a taxi to take her home, but on the way, she realized it was taking her out of the city, so she decided to get out of the car. Irritated, the girl asks if he still thinks he was that ugly fat guy from before. Now that he was handsome, he would end up meeting many girls who only think with their lower brains. Mentioning that handsome young men are the biggest targets when it comes to trafficking, and he shouldn't forget to warn someone when he gets into trouble. Asking him to hold the helmet, she says she would call the police, asking if he remembered the car's license plate, but the boy replies that he didn't. Then the girl says she would deliver some messages and would be right back. Lin, in turn, thinks that Yutang was just a mortal, but could also track demonic energy. Then he notices that she had returned. Mentioning that losing weight was causing her problems, she asks him to hand over her helmet. Putting it on her head, she says she didn't want to get into trouble. However, she feels embarrassed, thinking that the boy was more handsome than those motorcyclists on the internet. Lin wonders if that was a protective helmet. And the girl thinks he really was handsome, questioning how he had that ridiculous idea, mentioning that it was his personalized helmet and if he broke it, he would give it as a prize to the mean girls, saying that it only gave him headaches. Looking at where the girl was going, he realized it was exactly where the demonic energy was. As he was worried, he would check what was happening. Returning to Yutang, the girl seems to pass through a place she shouldn't, where an old lady ends up noticing, questioning who the girl was looking for. Quickly, Yutang draws a weapon, saying that she had a lot of courage not to run when she saw her. Desperate, the old lady says she shouldn't be playing that kind of game because it was against the law. Then Yutang questions if she knew the law of the demon cultivator, but the old lady says she was just a chicken farmer. Stealthily, she draws a dagger from her sleeve. Yutang, realizing the woman's intent, fires her weapon. With her arm bleeding, the old lady begs not to be killed. The girl mentions that she was a good actress but would have to be better to deceive her, using a spell that transforms her weapon into a sword. Even so, that old lady insisted she wasn't a demonic cultivator and had nothing to do with that incident. Yutang says that now she was only capable of refining chickens, but in the future it could be people's turn, mentioning that she had little cultivation time but was better than a monk. Then the old lady asks how she hadn't noticed that, saying she would go further if she refined her. Yutang says that was encouraging. Quickly advancing towards the demon, asserting that the outcome wouldn't change, stabbing her sword into the chest of that monster. Lin Mo, in the background observing the situation, thinks that energy seemed to be that of a demonic sword. Yutong in turn seems surprised, because her sword had no effect. The girl thinks that energy was completely different from the demonic cultivators she had encountered before, questioning what that creature was. In a matter of moments, the monster lunges at Yutang, where she barely dodges, assuming that if she received that attack, she would definitely die. Again, that creature envelops a spell in its fist. Then Yutong takes a piece of paper. It was a spiritual talisman thrown towards the monster. However, it has no effect, where the demon again attacks the girl. Suddenly, she is thrown against the wall. While spitting blood, she thinks she couldn't believe she had lost. At that moment, the protagonist appears to defend the girl, who asks what he was talking about since she should leave that place. Lin asks to speak politely, but Yutang gives an order to leave. Quickly, the young man seems to use a skill, where the demon stops moving. Yutang, surprised, asks why he had stopped, but Lin says it was nothing special, because he was the one there. While fleeing, the demon ends up falling to the ground. Before the monster, a giant aura surrounded the protagonist. The girl mentions that pressure was very strong and she couldn't breathe, wondering who Lin really was. Meanwhile, in another place in time, Guiyuan, in the city of Luobei, a man says that Tao was what gave rise to heaven and earth, encompassing all things. Then the man seems surprised, questioning why the bell was ringing and if that shouldn't happen only when there was a great event in the world. With the master kneeling, his subjects ask if he is okay. Then the man says that the father of Tao had just reincarnated. Returning to the protagonist, the boy asks where that demon was. However, that creature had already lost all its spirit, mentioning that it was just a fragment of the sword. Even so, that didn't matter. Using a skill, the young man seems to absorb that spirit, thinking it could be a trap from that demon to reveal its location, but it was a good item to cultivate when its demonic nature was eliminated. The only thing he had to do now was take care of that woman. Behind the protagonist, Yutang says he was very handsome. Using magic, the boy gives an order for her to forget what she had seen. Then Yutang ends up fainting. Observing the girl, Lin thinks that her spiritual root was of the highest quality, and that was incredible even in his world. However, that meant there was a good place to cultivate in that world. Otherwise, it would be impossible to reach that level. Right after using his ability, the boy feels a pain in his chest. Assuming he had overloaded his residual soul, thinking he should leave that place, where he ends up finding two girls mentioning that he was very handsome, and that they would take him to a pleasant place, but Lin asks to be released or he would regret it. Then the girl says she was just pretending to be tough, asking him to be a little kinder. Irritated, the protagonist thinks that since his soul was damaged, he couldn't use his strength. Touching his face, the woman says he should obey her. Meanwhile, Yutang was behind the two, asking them to get out of his way. He throws a punch at the woman, who barely dodges. The other woman tries to attack Yutang, but the girl dodges and counterattacks. Quickly, she delivers a kick to the other one, where she ends up knocking both out. Approaching Lin, she asks why he hadn't defended himself, saying that when encountering people like those, he should strike with all his strength at their weak point. The boy questions what the vital point was, and Yutang replies that it was the chest and asks if he didn't even know how to defend himself. As she leaves, the girl says she would take the young man to her house. When she was about to take off her helmet, Yutang asks why she had taken it off, asking her just to get on the motorcycle. Getting on the motorcycle, the two head towards Lin's house. The protagonist thinks that in his past life, grabbing a girl without being in a relationship would be considered indecency, but in this world, they didn't think much about it. However, that vehicle was very fast, mentioning that with his sword, he could go faster than that. In the still of the night, the two arrive at their destination. Lin, thanking for the ride, asks how much she would have to pay, and the girl questions what she was talking about. Calling him fat, she mentions that just a little while ago, the boy was scared, and the protagonist asks her not to call him that. Then Yutang says that before, Lin didn't care when people called him that way. In the midst of the conversation, the girl remembers something, saying that the protagonist had tricked her again and left her waiting. But the boy says that his family taught him that he should return home after class because he couldn't walk alone, saying he had waited for her before. However, Yutang mentions that he had an emergency. Then his phone starts ringing. Answering the phone, Yutang asks if everything was done, affirming that the target had a very powerful evil chi. Getting on his motorcycle, he says he had something to do. As he heads towards his destination, the girl stops at a corner, thinking that the smell of the protagonist's shampoo was bothering her. Returning to Lin, the boy thinks he needed to recover. Then Zixuan calls him, questioning if he was causing trouble with Yutang again. Yan Hui, in turn, says that the boy didn't know how to choose his words and was trying to say that Yutang was a bit stressed. Lin, ignoring the two, continues heading towards his house. Inside his room, the boy sits by his door, supposing that if he continued using his power, he could end up damaging his foundation. At least he managed to get a sword fragment that he could use to cultivate. Soon after, someone knocks on the door. Yan Hui appears, saying she wanted to talk to the protagonist. Noticing that she wasn't with Zixuan, he thinks the girl wanted to be alone. Then Yan Hui says it wasn't just about looks, but the more time she spends with her cousin, the more she realizes she liked the protagonist. That's why she wanted to apologize for everything she had done, asking if his grandmother wouldn't want them to get married. Before she could continue speaking, Lin closes the door. Begging, the girl asks him to believe her, saying they would get married. However, since Lin was an emperor, he didn't want to lower himself to that level. Thinking that he thought he had already reached the maximum level of spiritual cultivation, yet he still had a long way to go. Starting to meditate, the boy considers it as mental resilience training. The next day at Lin's school, a girl calls the protagonist to eat. Noticing that the boy had ignored her, she mentions that he was very handsome but had a heart of ice. And he was getting more handsome, looking even like a movie star. Meanwhile, Yan Hui, along with her group, was eating. Looking to the side, she notices a girl trying to call the protagonist to her table, who without any remorse ends up refusing. Zixuan asks what good it does to be handsome but alone, and the other guy says he had questioned how he lost weight, but he always ignored him. Observing that situation, Yan Hui seems restless. Getting up from the table, she says she would call the boy to her table since they were in the same class. Irritated, Zixuan asks why she would call him since the girl already knew he hated him. Reluctantly, Yan Hui asks the boy to let her go, or else Lin might see her and interpret it differently. Irritated, Zixuan says he had no more respect for him and that if he went to get the protagonist, he didn't need to come back. However, the girl thinks that if she could have Lin Mo in her arms, she wouldn't regret anything in her life. Meanwhile, a group of girls was bothering the boy, who wonders why all those women were bothering him. Next, Yu Tang calls the protagonist, ordering him to go to her desk immediately. The boys observing the commotion assume that Yu Tang was supposedly interested in Lin. Yan Hui, in turn, desperately thinks that that girl was the worst one to attract Lin's attention. The young man, for his part, cannot believe that woman was still calling him fat. Looking to the side, he spots that girl from before. Quickly, he starts walking, remembering that there was a possibility she would steal his spot on the terrace. While the young man walked, Yu Tang noticed him in a hurry. The girl next to her says that Lin had become very arrogant after getting a bit more handsome, asking who he thought he was. Furious, Yu Tang sends a message to the young man saying she would kill him after class. Returning to Lin, the boy was approaching the terrace. However, that woman was already in her resting spot, saying that since she had arrived first, Lin should leave. Refusing to leave, the young man mentions that he had won the race before, so that spot belonged to him. The girl says she had let him win because he was a man, asking if he thought she would lose. Then the young man suggests they go downstairs to bet on another race to settle this once and for all. Irritated, the Empress says the boy only knew how to run and asks if he had any other skills besides that, for if he continued like this, he would never get married. Lin Mo, for his part, says there was nothing special, stating he could choose any game because he would win against her in any of them. With a sly smile, the girl seems to be planning something. Picking up a cup of pieces, she says they would play that game. Watching what was in the girl's hand, Lin wonders if it could be what he was thinking. Then the Empress questions if he knew how to play that game and if he won against her, besides leaving the terrace, he could ask for anything. Sitting on the floor, the young man mentions he wouldn't be able to fulfill any of his wishes, even if he tried. Convinced, the girl thinks she had spent thousands of years playing that game and her skills were on another level. Little did she know that the protagonist had also spent many years playing that game, known as one of the best in his world. As they were about to start the game, the two stared at each other. In the middle of the match, both sides were completely focused. Realizing he still hadn't won, Lin wonders if that woman was some reincarnation of a player from that game. Sometime later, the match continued until sunset. The girl, observing the situation, realizes that the match was uncertain, and if she wasn't careful, she could lose. The young man says that if she didn't know what to do, she should give up. However, the Empress mentions that classes had already ended, so she should feel proud of getting this far and therefore should go home. Soon after, Lin's phone starts ringing, thinking he could never give up and would only leave that place with victory. The girl, for her part, could no longer stand the noise of that phone. Taking a picture of the board, she mentions they could continue the match the next day. However, when she was about to get up, she feels a shock in her leg from sitting for so long, where she accidentally ends up falling on top of the protagonist. Lin, for his part, feels a very cozy sensation. A moment later, the girl becomes completely embarrassed, saying she couldn't believe that. Then Lin slaps his forehead, saying that next time she should keep her magic spheres away from him, or he would call her a pervert. The girl thinks that this was already the second time he had hit her, and when her strength returned, she would make him regret it. But during the night, she would study tactics to win their match. Outside of school, Lin Mo picks up his phone to answer the call, realizing it was Yutang who was calling him. Furious, the girl questions why he hadn't answered her and where he was, ordering the young man to go to the school gate. The young man thinks that Yutang spent most of her time at school playing, and even so, she had a high cultivation level, so he would discover today what her secret was. Near the gate, Yutang asks why he took so long, questioning why he had stayed at school after skipping all the classes. However, he says he was just sleeping, leaving the girl surprised, saying she had come to pick him up for a rematch in that game. Handing a helmet to the young man, she tells him to get on the motorcycle. Sometime later, the two arrive at Yutang's house, and the protagonist is surprised that the place is so big. As they walked through the house, Yutang asks him not to touch anything. Looking around, Lin Mo thinks that the only thing in that place was games, and there was nothing about cultivation. The girl, in turn, questions whether the boy was not worried about being in that place, for a woman had called him to go to her house and the boy asked nothing. Then the protagonist questions if he intended to do anything with him. Mocking the boy, he mentions it was a good idea since he was no longer fat and it wouldn't be a bad idea after all. Without any compassion, the boy strikes her belly, ordering her not to touch him. Seeing the damage he had done, the young man thinks he didn't know that martial art was so good as it could take out a cultivator in seconds. Getting up, Yutang says he was just joking, but the protagonist says he didn't like that. Irritated, the woman warns that they would play more than 300 matches, thinking she would finish off the boy and make him pay for everything he had done. Sometime later, inside the game, Lin Mo wins a round against the girl. Soon after, 2 more times. That cycle continued countless times with not a single victory for the girl. Downcast, Yutang realizes she was losing 47-0. Getting up, the boy mentions he needed to go. Sneakily, he seems to place something under her table. Asking for another match, Yutang says he could stay at her house, but the young man says they would continue another day, saying he would take him to his house. Lin Mo says he would get a taxi. The thing the protagonist had placed under the table starts to fall. Seemingly coming to life, it begins to move. Meanwhile, in some random building, Yan Hui, in her room, was pondering why Lin had skipped afternoon classes, wondering where the boy had gone. She then receives a call. Someone asks her to check the message group, because something unbelievable had happened. Looking at the messages on her phone, she sees a photo of the protagonist with Yutang. Irritated, the girl starts to knock everything off her desk, questioning how dare she take her Lin Mo to her house, wishing for a motorcycle accident to happen to the woman. However, cursing wouldn't help at all. Then a purple crystal asks if by any chance she wanted to take revenge. Looking around the room, she questions who was there, asking them to show themselves. However, the crystal says its identity was of no relevance. Then a sinister face appears, saying it could do whatever she wanted. Yan Hui, in turn, asks if that monster was a witch from those soap operas. Embarrassed, that creature thinks the woman had nothing in place of her brain, saying it was the #1 divine sword of the immortal world that ended up shattering, and if she helped it recover, it would turn her into an immortal. Without even thinking, Yan Hui accepts the proposal, asking for help to become an immortal. At that moment, that creature seems to use magic on the girl. A purple crystal appears on Yan Hui's forehead, and the monster orders her to open her mind, allowing it to merge with her body. Asking why she felt no power, the spirit questions what she desired. Suddenly, the girl asks to be taught hypnosis, and the monster mentions there were numerous skills like that. In her thoughts, Yan Hui supposes that with that skill, Lin Mo would be entirely hers. Meanwhile, the protagonist was riding in a taxi, thinking he couldn't use his powers carelessly, believing Yutang should reveal her secrets. Quickly, the boy seems to make a hand signal. At Yutang's house, that doll receives a signal. Observing, the girl realizes she was playing, questioning if Yutang was a false cultivator, wondering how she had managed to reach that level. Furious, Yutang cannot believe she lost to a stinky fat guy. Lin Mo, in turn, gets irritated by the girl's words, mentioning he would now crush her in all the games. Then Yutang remembers she had to do something. Watching her leave the room, Lin Mo wonders where the girl was going. In the room, Yutang was changing clothes. Wearing a suit, she says it would work. Opening a closet, there were numerous combat weapons in that place. The protagonist thinks that even if all that was of low quality, it was still hard to obtain in this world. Starting to run, the doll jumps into the girl's clothes, thinking that this time he would discover her secrets. Sometime later, Yutang arrives at a building, thinking she should find out what shampoo the protagonist used because it smelled so good. Inside that building, the girl approaches a door. Meanwhile, someone says they should raise their glasses to celebrate the newlyweds. In that place, a wedding was happening, and the woman mentions the bride would make a speech. Taking the microphone, the woman thanks all the people who came even without time. Meanwhile, Yutang sits in her place, thinking that now she just had to wait for it all to end. After a while, the other woman declares that the wedding ceremony between Lin Yu and Xiu Qiu has ended, and now they could start the party. Returning to the two newlyweds, his wife asks if he is very tired, but the man asks her not to worry because he just needed to change clothes and drink something. While they were talking, someone approaches the two lovebirds. It was Yutang standing in front of them. Realizing who it was, the young man becomes desperate. The bride in turn asks if something is wrong. Then Yutang says that now that his wish has been fulfilled, it is time to go. As he begins to transform, the man asks if she thought fulfilling wishes was so easy. In that instant, the young man transforms into a werewolf. When he was about to attack the girl, Yutang uses a talisman. Dodging the attack with a leap, he draws his sword. Attacking the wolf from above, with one blow, it is knocked to the ground. Holding its neck, it thanks the girl, and in a matter of seconds, its head disconnects from its body. Desperate, his bride tries to help the man. In her thoughts, she apologizes to the woman because she would never see her again, mentioning that that form was a stupid way to die. Returning to human form, his wife runs into his arms, pleading for him not to die, ordering them to call an ambulance to help him. Furious, the woman says she would kill the girl. Yutang, in turn, mentions that she did not know her husband because he was an expert in draining energy from women, turning them into slaves, saying he was just doing his job and that it was nothing personal, using a talisman to make them forget everything they had witnessed. Soon after, the bride ends up fainting. Calling someone, Yutang says he has finished his job and now they should take care of the rest. Meanwhile, that doll falls from the girl. Running towards the man, Linmo realizes that it was a metamorphic fox that would be very useful. Linmo decides to save the fox and thus begins to perform the soul reincarnation spell. The golden aura of his paper doll begins to rise towards the fox. The body of the former fox man starts to have its soul extracted. It goes towards the doll that was with its arms crossed and ends up entering it. Thus the object completely changes its form to one with long silver hair. The little one ends up running desperately, and 20 minutes later, he reaches the hand of someone who was waiting for him. This being our protagonist, who is outside the building. The man's soul thinks he is going to die, so luckily, he managed to take revenge, but laments not having stayed with his beloved. Soon someone calls him by his name, Chen Xiuqiu, and asks if the fox really wants to die, or if he prefers to live. Opening his eyes in that abysmal darkness, the man admits he does not want this to be the end of his life. He still has much to say to Zhou Linyu, and no matter the cost, the man still wishes to live. Our protagonist informs him that he will give him a new life, and in return, he must serve him for 10 years. Thus, the little one ends up opening his purple eyes, revealing an adorable appearance, now of a young fox man with long gray hair. He looks around the ritual he is in, thus seeing our protagonist, who remains silent. Xiu Qiu has never heard of such powerful magic and wonders if it was this young man who summoned him. Soon he looks up, recognizing that this is the most powerful man he has ever met in his entire life. The little one ends up kneeling over the ritual. He introduces himself as Chen Xiuqiu and will be there to serve his master, saying he is very grateful for this opportunity to be under his orders. Linmo wishes for him to tell everything he knows about the cultivation of this world. The fox promptly confirms and asks where he should start, to which our young man informs he wants to know about the way of cultivating. The little apprentice explains that, due to the scarcity of energy in this realm, cultivators go to other secret realms, being completely limited because everyone is being controlled by powerful clans and families, reaffirming then that even an ordinary practitioner would not be able to join a sect if they did not have connections or background. Everyone is welcomed by the clans, but only to be used as furnaces and eventually destroyed for cultivation. Our protagonist realizes that this has become a malignant cultivation, which the little one confirms, saying that this logically happened due to the lack of energy. And, logically, the community of cultivators has always hunted the users of these malignant sources. Our protagonist asks if they resemble the cultivator Zhao Yuteng. With a brief smile, the fox confirms and then ends up saying that this girl is not only the most talented, but also from the Zhao family, one of the 3 great families. The other one decides to ask if there is an immortal kingdom, to which the little one says he doesn't know. Quickly, the boy ends up shouting and asking to visit his beloved during these 10 years of servitude, to which the protagonist confirms but informs him to never reveal himself. Completely proud, he never imagined he would find such a generous master and accepts that it is very easy to please the immortals. But soon the next day, he ends up being impressed while inside a backpack. Realizing that his master is in fact someone completely unexpected. Being a completely ordinary high school student, he then thinks that he must be some kind of boss of that place. The fox thinks that our protagonist is completely popular and all the women are staring at him, assuming thus that our hero is the best kind of person, since if he were a woman, he would also be pursuing our protagonist. But, completely ignorant, he wonders what the young man has in mind, as he can't go a minute without thinking of illicit things. Soon our protagonist reaches his chair, but he ends up noticing something strange, this being some snacks that are found at the bottom. Lin Mo wonders if this is something from his annoying friend named Song Yun Shu. His ex, He Yan Hui, approaches saying she remembered what his favorite snacks were and bought them, and Lin Mo can't believe it was her. Our boy's cousin approaches asking what she is doing and gets extremely angry. She claims that our hero is her fiancé, and, therefore, it is normal to pamper the protagonist a little, which leaves the man completely irritated. With tears in his eyes, he prepares to slap the girl's face while calling her a bitch. Yan Hui holds his hand with extreme strength while telling the boy to stop it. Our protagonist is impressed that his cousin is someone who couldn't even slap a woman. The girl says she will only say it once and ends up stating that she will punish him if he continues bothering our boy. Thus, leaving the purple-haired boy completely helpless and crying, he runs away from there, leaving the girl alone. She says that if anyone bothers him, he can call her, and she will come back and sort everything out in his place. The girls think it is ironic that the girl now shows interest in the protagonist, as he has been getting more daring as he has become handsome. Soon noon arrives, and we can see the school cafeteria. A girl with blue hair calls for the blonde, saying that a young woman named He Yan Hui is stealing her man. But the president says they are a bunch of idiots and claims that the girl can have the fat one, as he doesn't interest her. Soon, a certain presence catches her attention, this being the protagonist's ex, who appears with a smug and wicked look. She ends up shouting Lin Mo's name, who is our protagonist, thus calling him to eat with her. Soon, the girl with blue hair thinks she is trying to provoke, and, therefore, tells Yutong not to take it seriously. But, with extreme brutality, the blonde says that if the protagonist annoys her, then she will give him a beating. Soon, anger rises on our hero's face. Thus, he ends up leaving the place with his ex, who is convinced that she can be with him. He can't believe he lost his cool after so many years of cultivation and therefore believes he has much to learn. In his pocket, the little fox thinks that his master is truly someone amazing, as even someone like Zhao Yutang is jealous because of him. Furious, the girl asks if the boy really complained about her, but the blue-haired one just says to ignore it, as she can't hit a boy. She decides to forget about the fat one, and then thinks about the girl, as she is being very bold. Our protagonist finally arrives at the ground floor of the school. The dark-haired girl, while eating a pastry, tells him to hurry up. Our protagonist notices the immense hostility and reflects that she must be angry about the previous day. He sits down, and then makes his first move in the game. She knew that our protagonist would make it difficult for her, but still, she had already thought of a solution before all this happened. Impressed, he admits that the girl is really good at this game, but suddenly his stomach lets out a growl of hunger. With the bag in hand, he stares at her with a somewhat vacant look, thus opening and revealing a lunchbox inside it. Soon he ends up breaking his chopsticks to indulge in the meal. The other assumes this is a matter of respect for eating instead of playing, but our protagonist excuses himself by saying it's lunchtime. She thinks that if he keeps this up, he'll be fat again soon, but soon a question arises about the fat guy who was here on the terrace. Our protagonist says he has never seen anyone with that kind of profile around here. Angrily, she admits that just thinking about that boy makes her ribs hurt because of his weight. But quickly, her expression changes to surprise upon seeing something on her phone. It's a photo of our protagonist being posted in the girls' group. Thus, realizing that our protagonist was, in fact, the fat guy she had met earlier. With red eyes, she says she has a question. Recalling and showing the photo of the protagonist, she asks if he really didn't know this person from the phone. With extreme shamelessness, the protagonist says he has never seen anyone so fat, to which the girl gets annoyed, saying that Lin Mo is a terrible liar. But she understands that he doesn't want to talk about the past and, therefore, says he doesn't need to worry since she hadn't asked about that. Soon she ends up rummaging through her bag, revealing that she washed his jacket, but thinking it won't fit someone of his current physique anymore. A light shines in her eyes, perplexed by this gesture. Then, he collects the clothing while remaining completely stunned. Quickly, the young woman ends up standing up, accepting thus that it was a tie and saying that he is indeed very good at the game. Our protagonist informs her that few people can match him, but she was one of the few who managed to surprise him. The girl admits that from today on, their fight is over, but ending it this way leaves the protagonist in silence. Quickly and with conviction, he ends up calling her, saying that it would be better to have a best of 3 to decide a winner. With a cheerful smile, she accepts his proposal and then reveals that her name is Han Xinyi. Our protagonist is surprised by this name at first, but then reflects a bit. His little fox jumps out of surprise from her bag. He is surprised that he is so powerful that all the women throw themselves at his feet. But our protagonist reveals he has a question, which is about where her resources for the evil cultivation come from. Promptly, the little one replies that they come from the Dark Door Network. The items are protected by the Shadow Clan, which is primarily responsible for the protection of both demonic cultivators and members of other families. But they can sell them to good-natured people if you have money. Our protagonist is surprised and then asks how he made money. The little fox replies that he has done several assassination missions, but ends up saying that the quickest way to get money is to find a sugar mommy. He assumes that his master doesn't even need to work since a sugar mom would be the best option for him. But quickly, the protagonist's hand flies in his direction, grabbing him while he squirms, saying he shouldn't have said such things. Lin Mo then puts him in his pocket, informing him that when he gets home he will take a look at the materials, and especially how to make spiritual amulets. Night begins to fall over the school, which is now silent. At the moment of leaving, the blonde ends up calling him by the name of the fat guy she knows. But our hero just diverts, causing Zhao Yutang to get irritated and tell him not to pretend he didn't see her. She ends up saying that today, her ex-girlfriend provoked her and tried to embarrass her, but our protagonist reveals that Yan Hui is not his ex-girlfriend. The girl doesn't care but informs him that she is a respectable person, and therefore he should cooperate, saying he can go with her for a motorcycle ride. In silence, the protagonist just keeps his face unchanged while reflecting. The girl, with a mischievous smile, questions whether Lin Mo will be able to get on by himself or if he will need her to carry him. When he ends up agreeing, they both go to the motorcycle, and she calls him a good boy. Behind a post, someone watches the blonde and curses her for going out with his precious Lin Mo. A dark voice ends up asking why she doesn't hypnotize him. But the younger one decides to reveal that she wants the protagonist to surrender to her body and soul voluntarily. Both end up leaving the school in a desperate manner. The protagonist notices this and says that Yutang is going too far. With a mischievous smile, she says that he is very naive for believing the words of a woman. In a broadly suggestive manner, the protagonist asks if she really likes him, leaving her blushing and confused. The motorcycle suddenly skids to a stop. With a red face, she asks if it wasn't clear enough that she isn't interested in him, to which the protagonist asks if she really doesn't want him. The girl tries to refuse with all her might, and the protagonist simply accepts, saying that they are just classmates, so she shouldn't get too involved with him. Yutang reveals that she has a line of people wanting to be her boyfriend, and even so, if it weren't for the games, she would never have looked at the protagonist. In the pocket of our young man, the little fox thinks that her master is truly surprising. He wonders when he put that paper doll on her, and on top of that, how he did it with a regular A4 paper. Sometime later, we can see the house of our dear protagonist. He thinks about the shadowy door network. Soon after, he calls for his little companion, who jumps onto the table. With quick clicks on the keyboard, he confidently says that he will enter the shadow network as quickly as possible. Thus, he keeps hitting enter hard and manages to access it. But the little fox ends up landing on a site with highly suggestive content. This is a site for renting a lady of the night, or even books with explicit adult content. Lin Mo then wonders if this is the right site, to which the little fox replies that it is the right site and he just needs to go to the treasure page. He thinks he has found the real world of cultivation, but even a lower-level spiritual weapon from the immortal realm is a superior treasure in this world. The most important things he will need are 1,000-year-old ginseng immortal stones, but they cost over $100,000. His little companion still tries to convince him to sell his photos to rich older women. But, with a stressed face, the protagonist asks if he looks poor or something like that, to which his little apprentice understands. Our protagonist then asks for the money that the little fox has, but the tiny one says he only has 30,000 in his account. Grabbing the mouse along with his computer, he says that will be enough. The young man with white hair decides to question whether his master really intends to make talismans. Soon, Chen Shushu tries to suggest that the boy look for something else, since talismans can have a good price, but they are hard to make, and the materials they have are of low quality. Our protagonist informs that he will only make low-level talismans to sell them, so he tells her not to worry about anything. Then he distances himself, telling her to go back to training, and his little apprentice thinks that, with these materials, he will only be able to make trash and useless things. The next day, we see Lin Mo now wearing an outfit that hides his identity, along with a mask and glasses. A man in a van asks if the delivery is his, to which he replies that it is the White Fox. Thus, the large box is received in his hands, and the delivery person asks for a 5-star rating for his great work. The younger one assumes that this is indeed a fast delivery service and, therefore, thinks about rating it. In his pocket, his apprentice informs that the Dark Clan has a business network that rivals even the great families. Soon after, we can see a few minutes later where the protagonist stares at 2 papers on his desk. The little white fox questions in thought if he really intends to make these talismans. He has heard that the talisman masters of the great families spend years training before starting, and even then, only 30% of them succeed. Our young man ends up sighing while closing his eyes. Then he starts drawing the symbols on the paper with extreme agility. Quickly, he says he has finished the dragon talisman, which surprises the little fox. He thinks it is impossible to have made the symbols in a simple instant, and especially, to have made two at the same time, and swears he saw a dragon appearing out of nowhere. Our protagonist tells him to stop making noise, as these are low-quality talismans. Moreover, it is a pity that he only has enough spiritual power to make two and admits he needs to buy more spiritual stones. Right after that, Linmo is going to put these items up for sale and announce them for $500,000. But he quickly gets surprised by having posted it, as the bids started to rise anonymously, but rapidly. His companion informs him that talismans sell very well, and that great cultivators and even ordinary people use them, which is why they are considered high quality. Soon, our protagonist realizes that something might have happened to his paper doll. Looking closely through the doll's vision, he notices that the blonde is also in the dark web observing something strange. With eyes full of dark circles, she decides to say that working on the investigation of a kid who has gone missing is really exhausting. Until suddenly, she ends up seeing the ad for the high-quality talisman, along with the invisibility effect, which seems quite convincing. She assumes it's a good time since she doesn't know this demon, and it's better to be prepared to observe him if necessary. Our protagonist thinks that a spiritual stone might be useful, and besides that, a missing demon is really strange, and wonders if it could be the venerable demon. We then see the next day at school, right at lunchtime. Our dear Lin Mo climbs the stairs until he is interrupted by three boys. They end up offending him and asking how he dares to disguise himself to attract the girl's attention, but inside, the boy remains the same trash. Our protagonist maintains his dark and neutral expression while looking a bit down. His ex-girlfriend says she is enjoying this hypnosis more, as it is giving him an unbelievable chance. But, with an arrogant and especially threatening look, the protagonist warns them to get out of his way, which irritates the people in front of him. The boys, unconvinced, ask if Lin Mo has lost his love for life, and then decide that they will kill him at that very moment. But before they can hurl more insults at the protagonist, he ends up being grabbed by his huge hand. Our young man pushes him against the wall in one swift motion with extreme brutality. The impact was so powerful that it knocked his consciousness away. And then, with an irritated look, our protagonist glances to the side. Seeing the two horrendous henchmen, he questions whether he really desires death. His ex thinks this is the time to intervene and manage to have the protagonist in her arms. But quickly, a girl with black hair passes in front of her. She ends up shouting for them to stop tormenting him. This is the board game colleague that the protagonist met, who then questions what is happening there. The beaten and crying boy lies, saying they wanted to be friends, but Lin Mo ended up pushing him and punched his nose. The young girl questions if this is really the truth, as there's no way to know if the boy is lying. Soon after, the protagonist's ex starts cursing the girl, saying she stole her scene. Then, she pretends to have just arrived and asks if her protagonist is okay. As she heard there was a commotion and ran over, she asks if it was the girl who did this and thanks her, saying next that one day she will treat her to lunch to thank her better. Then she takes the protagonist's hand and calls him to leave there. But promptly, the black-haired girl ends up holding his hand. She, with a confident tone, says that this is really detestable, as a woman should not take advantage of a defenseless man. With a malicious and angry expression, the girl tells her not to come near her or get involved in her matters, as that is the best she can do. The protagonist tells her to leave her alone, as they can already go. Yanhui realizes she is losing control over the protagonist and, therefore, tries to use her hypnosis. But promptly the hypnosis was nullified and thus did not work on our hero. The demon accompanying her informs her not to use magic for the rest of the day, as he has a bad feeling. The black-haired girl mentions having heard that the younger one ended up rejecting the protagonist. Then she passes in front of her, leaving her angry by saying she feels sorry for her. But the brown-haired girl ends up standing there. Soon, trembling with rage, she can only think about how unpleasant this girl is, and calls the protagonist a shameless dog for not obeying her orders. Next, we see after classes where the protagonist arrives home. He is in front of the computer, along with his little companion. Then, Chen Shuchu ends up saying that someone offered 2 spiritual stones and a lot of money, understanding that this person really knows how to do business. Our protagonist realizes that the offer is from the blonde girl and wonders if she is a member of the Phoenix, adding that this could end up being a trap. Lin Mo then says that his companion had told him that the Phoenix group was responsible for eliminating evil cultivators, so there's no reason for them to be there. But the little fox reveals that a trap is not necessary, as the Dark Portal Network already cleanses all evil cultivators every day with the help of the Phoenix group. Next, a small notification pops up on his computer. He notices that the chosen meeting point was Fangtong Station, which is an apparently normal place. Even so, just to be safe, He goes disguised as always. His little fox ends up being perplexed to know that all this is unnecessary, as the website and delivery are completely secure. The next day, after classes, the protagonist managed to get the delivery. He thinks that, after the commission of 200,000 in cash, only 700,000 and the spiritual stones are left. But still, he didn't expect the quality of the items to be so poor in this world. Our young man then absorbs the raw material all at once. With a smile, he realizes that at least he will still be able to recover some of his spiritual power. Then he picks up 2 more talismans that he had made, thus releasing a huge dragon from the 2 papers. The protagonist informs his little companion to sell the 2 on the Dark Portal network, which he confirms. He can see the comments from people really praising whoever the master was that made these 2 types of talismans. Lin Mo thinks that this world is really backward in terms of cultivation, and it's strange for them to get excited over a simple first-level talisman. Quickly, his little companion becomes excited and perplexed, because someone offered 3 million all at once to the protagonist, but soon the price rose to 4 million all at once. Someone in a completely technological room asks if he has gone crazy, wondering how a first-level talisman can cost more than 3 million. Quickly, someone on the microphone just said that the invisibility talisman that was sold earlier was not normal, and that's why they want to find out about the manufacturer. At the blonde girl's house, she observes her state-of-the-art computer. Quickly, she starts to get even more irritated seeing something in front of her. Yu Tang then clicks her mouse all at once, thus adding another million to the talisman auction. Our protagonist just watches the prices rise with his arms crossed. He had to cover his little companion's mouth so he wouldn't disrupt. Quickly, the offer peaked at 15 million in cash. The comments are from people wanting to make a proposal to the protagonist and mainly asking if they can meet. Our young man realizes that all this is dangerous and decides to disappear for a while, as all the cultivators in this world will probably come after him. But at least he will manage to get something good and decides to check on the progress of the blonde girl who was betting in the auction. Sometime later, we can see the girl's house. Our protagonist notices that she is still investigating the disappearance of the boys, all of whom are virgin boys, and it seems to have something to do with the Demon King. Looking at the screen, he realizes that Yu Tang is doing real-time surveillance, but at the same time, our boy feels somewhat uncomfortable with that, as he didn't know she liked this kind of thing. She tenses up seeing such ugliness on her computer screen and then bangs on the table, saying that this boy is horrible and not even his hairstyle can save him. The horrendous one then decides to search the internet for something, looking for tips to look better in photos. This could even be something that makes him beautiful, and he still decides to look for eccentric filters. Other things are also considered, like plastic surgeries and facial harmonization, but there's something more, such as a flat stomach, long legs, and even love handle removal. Our dear Yu Tang does not wish to continue living with such atrocity that she is seeing on her screen. She ends up admitting that not even the fat guy is as unbearable as this disgusting one. Sometime later, we can see the school during lunchtime. Our protagonist notices that the blonde girl said something that has nothing to do with him, until suddenly, his attention is drawn by someone in front of him. Being this the girl with dark hair who questions if he doesn't want to play, and if Lin Mo doesn't wish to, then that's fine, since she doesn't want to win easily. Silence permeates as the protagonist observes the board game. Soon, he confirms that he is not feeling well, and therefore decides to leave. He admits that he doesn't want to acknowledge defeat, but the young man also doesn't want to take advantage of this situation in any way. Our protagonist then goes to the edge of the terrace, thus going up to get some fresh air, and ends up thinking that if he wants to gain the power of Yang, he will need to create a formation, and the most powerful ones are the evil ones. If only Lin Mo had a bit of tea, then perhaps it would be possible to do what he desires. The girl decides to warn him not to accidentally fall, to which he just smiles in response. Our protagonist then walks towards her, humming lightly. But Yan Hui, who was secretly observing all of this, ends up getting more irritated. Soon our hero is stopped just as he is leaving the terrace. This is by the girl with brown hair, who is extremely angry with him. Our young man promptly asks what is wrong with her, to which she tries to speak with a dark expression on her face. But Han Xinyi, who is in the company of the protagonist, ends up telling her to stop bothering him. Soon the younger girl with brown hair tells the companion not to dare touch her man, who belongs to her down to his nails and teeth. Yan Hui turns around and says that the girl just needs to wait, and then she will see her painful death. Lin Mo observes her departure while wondering in thought when he became hers. Sometime later, when night falls, we can see the house of the protagonist's ex. While she takes a shower in a stressed manner, she thinks and admits that she underestimated our hero. Yan Hui thinks she should have sought him out from the very beginning of all this, but she ends up admitting that this time, he will belong entirely to her, without any hesitation. And with a psychotic face, The girl declares that she will hypnotize him that very night to have the boy as her obedient little puppy from now on. Her aura spreads through the air until it reaches the protagonist's house. The purple energy approaches him while he enjoys his morning beauty sleep. But a barrier, a result of his energy, ends up holding back all that negative impact. His little companion wakes up and realizes that something happened, and even wonders what could have caused him so much torment while he slept. Quickly, Lin-Mo realizes that this is a remote hypnosis technique, and that he never thought someone in this world would use something like that to hypnotize this emperor. The next day, we can see our protagonist's school, where the girl with brown hair stands in front of him, blocking and preventing his path. She ends up saying that tonight he will get ready and go to her house. With eyes full of malice, she can only imagine the taste of his lips and becomes even more anxious for the night to arrive. But then she gets a psychotic look on her face, thinking that she really managed to hypnotize Lin-Mo and thus assumes that he will be obedient. On the other hand, our protagonist continues walking lightly, thus smiling as he realizes that it was she who hypnotized him last night. Soon it is revealed to us that our hero was able to stick a paper doll on the girl's back. His consciousness was already linked to the little doll that smiled at our protagonist. Thus, we can see him at another time in the classroom, until suddenly something catches his attention. This being the paper doll on his ex's body, which ended up disappearing. The reason for such disappearance was that the brown-haired girl found the little observer that was stuck to her, thus pulverizing it with her demonic purple flames. Her demon tells her that she is pathetic for not realizing she was being watched. With sweat on her face and tense, Yanhui wonders who could be the person that could suspect her enough to need to observe her. Her companion then informs her that whoever it is, it doesn't matter, since the young woman cannot let this person ruin her plan. After school, when the afternoon begins to fall, we can see our protagonist leaving and thinking that it is a possibility that whoever destroyed the paper doll is connected to the venerable demon. But since there are many cultivators in this world, he cannot act hastily, and therefore it may be necessary for him to go after the Phoenix group. If his calculations are correct, the blonde should pass by at that exact moment. In this world, the act he is about to commit has a very specific name. Being called especially fraud, the girl suddenly gets startled upon realizing she ran over the protagonist. Soon, the blonde stops her motorcycle while our boy hits the ground due to the previous impact. She asks why he left without looking both ways. With him in her arms, she questions if he is okay and says she will take him to the hospital. But with empty eyes, the boy simply rises, leaving her confused. With a devilish smile, Lin-Mo admits to having learned to be evil in this world he finds himself in. The blonde wonders what is wrong with him and even tries to pull him. But the protagonist reveals that he will go to his ex-girlfriend's house tonight, as the girl is waiting for him for a special night. She is surprised by such a statement, knowing that this is not in the boy's nature. Suddenly, surprise settles on her face as she realizes one more thing. She tries to call out to the protagonist, telling him to come back to his senses, but he ends up passing by her, leaving her completely dumbfounded. Yutang wonders if this fat guy really ended up being hypnotized, making a gesture with her hands to break the spell. She ends up drawing a star using her own fingers in the air, thus resting her hand on the boy's forehead. The shine in his eyes, which had previously faded, begins to reappear little by little, but quickly disappears again. She realizes it had no effect and wonders if the person who cast this spell is really that powerful. Soon our beauty decides to use the Ghost Redemption Seal, applying a heavy and magical palm on our protagonist's forehead, thus making him return to his previous senses, which were clearly being feigned. With his hand on his face, he asks what is happening and why he is there. The blonde says she was going to ask him that and questions if, by any chance, Lin-Mo had ever met his ex-girlfriend. He admits he has, but asks what that matters since she is going to see her fiancé. Completely blushing, the girl ends up saying that the young man appeared in front of her and was run over by her motorcycle. So, for that reason, he must follow her to the hospital. Yutang wonders how our hero can say that after being run over, but admits he doesn't want to, and if she feels bad, then she can pay his medical expenses later. The girl ends up grabbing his collar, leaving him completely agonizing. Then, she rubs the paper in his face, saying she will give him a check at the bank, since she doesn't want to have to worry about a lawsuit from him in the future. She tells him to spend it on whatever he wants, but he must not use it against her in the future, or he will regret it. Our dear Lin-Mo wonders if writing a few thousand zeros will be enough to exchange for a few hundred spiritual storage units. The girl then speeds off, using her own motorcycle. Yutang ends up saying that she needs all the information about the protagonist's ex, as she is a suspect, which someone on her helmet communicator confirms. Thus, she arrives at the house of the girl who was our boy's suitor, removing her helmet gracefully. She ends up extending her hand, which has a special ring. Thus, releasing her magical sword all at once, she decides to make dozens of cuts on the doorknob to be able to open the door. The cuts were so perfect that the door itself fell, but not the doorknob, which remained stuck in the shape of the door. She ends up entering, seeing some family photos, appearing not to be of her family, but rather of two boys who seem to be her friends. She then reaches the room of the protagonist's ex, thus realizing that she is a total crazy person for having thousands of photos of the protagonist pinned to her wall, even ending up noticing several manuals of our protagonist and then decides to see what they are. Reading curiously, she ends up flipping through the pages slowly. Her face begins to turn red with such indecency in the pages. She admits that all of that is very perverted and then decides to put an end to it, until her communicator informs her that they have a new problem, saying that He Yanhui has suddenly and completely suspiciously disappeared. The girl can see that by the young woman's plans, it is very likely that she has something to do with the missing persons, and therefore must tell the team to put out a missing person notice. Soon after, she ends up thinking that He Yanhui is extremely clever for having thought of such a precise plan in such a short time. In the house of our protagonist, the night finishes covering the place. He begins to think that he has seen everything, and it's easy to imagine that his ex-girlfriend has some connection with the venerable demon, and therefore, the Phoenix group should prioritize her. Until suddenly, a sound catches the attention of our dear protagonist. It is his cousin, who asks if he has seen the news recently. Promptly, our boy opens the door in a rather welcoming manner. And quickly, the boy with purple hair informs him that He Yanhui is being sought, but our protagonist states he knows nothing, as he will no longer approach her. Then, Lin ends the conversation with our boy when he is met with a strong slam of the door. The young man tells him to at least check the news that is happening right now. Our protagonist sees that He Yanhui from the Fengxiang Institute is suspected of a case of abuse against a young man and, therefore, is being sought throughout the country. Then, he thinks that the search team is really efficient, but still there is no information about the girl. The little fox thinks that this woman is truly cruel and extremely foolish for thinking of messing with her master. Lin Mo knows that if the venerable demon wants to absorb the yang power of a young man, he will end up forming a well-structured formation, mainly stemming from evil. Quickly, our young man crouches down and starts rummaging through a box. The little white fox wonders what her master is looking for until she sees him with a sparkle in his gestures, becoming even more confused upon realizing that what he picked up are just some seemingly normal wooden boards. Soon, our hero lets out a tired sigh, thus gathering all his energy at once into the two boards. They soon begin to disassemble and reform into a shape convenient for him, this being a kind of manual compass that can be used, made only of wood. The little fox is surprised that he made such an ancient Eastern compass in such a short time. Our boy thinks that with the venerable demon's ability, it will be impossible for the Phoenix group to find her, that is, unless they use this compass to locate the evil energy. Our young man begins to merge the two at once, this being a form of location like a radar. A huge explosion occurs and causes a surprise scream from the little fox. That light artifact from before has now become heavier in relation to the energy due to merging with a low-level stone. The fox is stunned by this unbelievable sight. Quickly, the spoon that serves as a needle to point the direction starts to move. Thus, the little servant of our hero realizes that his master is indeed powerful for making such a simple board work so well as a radar. Our protagonist then asks the little fox to hold it, which the little spirit confirms. He then questions his master what this compass does that is so special. Quickly, our protagonist explains that it serves to search for places where there is the highest concentration of yin energy in the city. Suddenly, something catches the attention of our young man, leaving him completely startled. He tells the little fox to hide, which she obeys with extreme precision. The boy observes the window calmly and in silence, until the blonde, with a funny expression, appears and leaves him slightly confused. She makes an excited and strange expression, thus making him feel completely uncomfortable. With the phone in hand, the young man promptly thinks of calling the police, to which she tells him to open the window and not do anything indecent. She apologizes for what she did, saying it was something necessary. Our protagonist promptly asks what she is doing in a place like that, to which the girl tells him not to say nonsense, and asks where the boy got hurt. Our hero promptly thinks that Yu Tang is suspecting him, but by huge luck he hasn't healed, so the wounds and scars are still on his body. He ends up showing his wound on his arm and also reveals there is another on his leg. Quickly, the girl lifts her pant leg in an indecent manner, revealing her slight wound. Completely dumbfounded and embarrassed, he asks what she is doing, but Yu Tang assumes she will just clean the wounds. Otherwise, she will be responsible for the scars that will remain if she doesn't do this. She thinks that this guy, who was once fat, really has the most beautiful legs she has ever seen. Your fox ends up shouting in thought that her master gave her an arm, and she went straight for his legs, so the girl is completely taking advantage of him. Our protagonist lowers his pants and says he never imagined someone like Yu Tang would come for such a trivial reason, But the girl reveals she has a question, which is about him being one of the last to see He Yanhui, and therefore she asks about what he was told. Our boy reveals he doesn't remember anything that happened after seeing her. The girl then crosses to the other side of the window and says that all of this was useless and therefore she will leave, but our boy wonders why she doesn't just go out the door. Soon after, Lin Mo, being completely cautious, ends up asking her to wait. He finishes by informing her that he can act as bait to help her, if she wants. Quickly, the girl ends up with her face red from embarrassment for having seen something apparently indecent. This being the completely defined chest of our boy that is on display due to his t-shirt. She ends up jumping from the balcony and says she will accept this offer, but our protagonist realizes she agreed a bit too quickly. The next day, the sun rises at school. Our protagonist promptly arrives in his classroom with extreme flamboyance. The girls approach him completely worried, as they heard that Yanhui is an abuser, and therefore they are concerned about what she might have done to him. Our protagonist, being completely cold, reveals he is fine and wishes for the two of them to get out of his way. Suddenly, a girl arrives and tells everyone to go see, as a very handsome guy has just been transferred to their class. All the girls quickly move, heading towards the location to learn more about this new person. The girls near the new boy with green hair ask for his name. Quickly, he introduces himself as Shen Letian, and since they know each other and are in the same class, they can call him Lele. Suddenly, some blonde hair catches his attention unexpectedly. The girls convince him to go with them to somewhere at the main entrance, which he promptly agrees to. The young man, with ulterior motives, reveals that he transferred to this school to investigate the case of He Yanhui, but still did not expect to find a beauty like this. But suddenly he is impressed to see that she has her foot in the door. She then delivers a powerful kick that ends up ripping the door off its hinges. Right after, shouting for her companion not to go outside the school, as he shouldn't leave before her. The green-haired boy is completely confused by this advance and starts calculating the possibilities of her being a complete crazy person because of her beauty. After school, the sun begins to set at the school. Our protagonist leaves the place still maintaining his flamboyance, as always. The blonde was waiting for him outside and tells Lin Mo to follow her. Both start walking down the school corridor, which becomes completely silent. We can see that he was taken to the infirmary, so they could be alone together. He ends up saying that he is already healed, and if she touches his leg again, then he will have to retaliate and immobilize her until the police arrive. But the girl reveals she doesn't care about that, and then asks our hero to look at a document. She ends up revealing that she has a police relative, and he found a diary on how to take care of our protagonist at He Yanhui's house, which is a clear lie. Even though the boy has read this before, he is still surprised to see certain details of somewhat questionable fetishes on the pages. The girl, blushing, says that her plan seems to have a certain detail about observing men and taking them to her house, and apparently Lin Mo was one of those men. But the protagonist reveals he never thought she would be a pervert and should have discovered this earlier, as he could have prepared in case something like that happened. The blonde then says they searched for her all over the country, but still found not a single trace of her, not even in her favorite places. Our protagonist then takes off his glasses and reveals that he remembers He Yanhui always liked scary places since she was a child. So, probably she must have hidden in one of those places. As for why no one found her, it's because she must have used some kind of makeup. He says all this while maintaining an extremely cool pose, to which the girl reveals that our hero doesn't need to be a school detective. Yutong realizes that all of this makes sense, as she must have used some kind of disguise to hide. She notices that He Yanhui really likes dark places and, therefore, must have taken many young boys to practice her evil arts with the bodies of those defenseless kids. The girl then says that this is all she has to talk about for today, and therefore, our hero needs to leave at this very moment. He ends up giving a devilish smile at all of this. Soon we can see his house, where he appears completely defenseless. He has already given her the clues, and next time, Zhao Yutang will go to the darknet to buy a magical weapon to help find the yin energy. The boy then calls for his little apprentice, who quickly appears. Our protagonist ends up asking him to put that up for auction on the dark door, that is, the compass he made extremely quickly. Promptly the fox understands and begins to type on the keyboard with extreme speed. He decides to set the starting price at 10,000 in cash, and then publishes it. Next, he reveals to his master that he has already put it up for auction, and it's just a matter of time to see the results. Chen Xiushu notices that the price is rising abnormally, as if it were an item extremely coveted by everyone. Quickly, the 10,000 in cash turns into 5 million in a surreal speed. At the same time, we can see Zhao Yutang's house, our blonde. She notices that the price has already reached 5 million in the blink of an eye and is still rising non-stop. With a sly smile on her face, she reveals that these people really like to flaunt money, and then says that they have no money compared to her. Our protagonist, through his observation role, sees that Zhao Yutang is indeed bidding with extreme eagerness. What appears most is that she will manage to get the item, and, thus, will be able to track down our dear protagonist's ex. Quickly, the price reaches the incredible mark of 10 million. The little fox realizes that it has achieved a surreal result in just a few seconds and wonders how many married women have that much money. Soon after, we see a day later, where the blonde is gathered with several other women and an old woman with a cane. She reveals that the place with the highest concentration of yin is exactly there. The old woman thinks aloud that this is a great treasure pointing hundreds of miles away and reveals the strongest yin energy, and therefore must be very rare. Our girl realizes that she is a specially invited expert by the group to help on this mission, and that it is not easy to receive compliments from this woman. Pulling her cane, the old lady reveals a weapon, and then says that she will explore the path ahead, and they should wait there. When the elderly woman approaches, a huge green and demonic hand suddenly appears in front of her. A gigantic explosion occurs, resulting from a special attack that the woman used at the right moment before being hit. Our protagonist, watching everything with his paper doll, can only feel tense about this situation. He recalls that there was no way to break the formation and that this could be some modern weapon she pulled from the ring. He realizes it is something unprecedented in this world and then assumes it is something incredible he never imagined. Suddenly, his wall breaks due to an extremely muscular woman who just arrived while carrying our boy's cousin. Our young man is surprised by this, as he sees that the girl is emanating a strange green and evil aura. The little fox calls for her master and says that this woman also ended up breaking the protagonist's cousin. Linmo says he knows this well and therefore asks the little fox not to move, as he has already thought about it and that there are things that cannot be done. Apparently, He Yanhui has hypnotized them to want to kidnap him. But since the Phoenix group is still fighting, it is unlikely that his ex will make an effort to come personally there. As the fist comes toward him, he keeps in mind that there might be a deeper meaning to all of this. This being the possibility of a trap set by Yanhui to capture the Phoenix while kidnapping him. All he has to do is simply wait for Yanhui to regret it, and fortunately, he managed to use his aura to protect his body and stay awake. The woman ends up taking both cousins to a white van that is outside, waiting for them suspiciously. She abruptly and violently throws the two, who have bags over their heads, into the car. Quickly, she leaves the location and drives through the streets without a care in the world. Soon, the one who was driving arrives at an abandoned factory, where the protagonist's ex is likely hiding. The woman then removes the bag from our hero's head. In a sadistic manner, she is impressed that it is him who is there, clearly being a facade. She asks if he is surprised to see her again in this place. With a devilish smile, Linmo admits that he is indeed surprised by all of this, thus insulting her. She becomes extremely stressed due to the arrogant tone that is laden in our boy's sentences. Throwing the boy against the wall, she can only assume that he has a big mouth and is bold to speak to her that way. Linmo advises her not to get close to him. Unbuttoning her shirt, she says that he is still pretending to be arrogant and wonders if it was Zhao Yutang or Han Xinyi who took his virginity. Her demon informs her that the blonde has broken the formation and is quickly coming to this place, so it's better for He Yanhui to hurry up and get the job done. With a devilish smile, along with a wicked expression, she says it's true, since the Emperor is waiting for his next special move. She assumes that the protagonist should stay there and wait, as she will return after testing the Emperor. Our boy becomes tense at the possibility of the demonic sword or the venerable demon communicating internally with the girl. In a dark cell where water can drip, we see some time later, where the protagonist's cousin is sleeping soundly, even in a situation like this, until he wakes up desperately and begs not to be killed or abused. Looking around, he asks to be spared from this cruel fate and, above all, wonders where he is. In another place, we can see the crater made by the old woman who broke the formation. They all gather to see this enormous location. The blonde realizes that He Yanhui was indeed clever enough to use this formation to turn this place into one with an extreme amount of yin. Now they must head in the next direction that the compass is pointing to in order to arrive in time, as the people in the area may be dead. A green demon appears and, laughing, asks where the women think they are going. Suddenly, a huge explosion occurs, throwing everyone back. Laughing wickedly, this flame demon claims that everyone there will die without further demands. We can then see the forest where the demon was summoned. A deer that was calmly eating the grass in that lively place suddenly notices something. This action briefly startles it. It is a gigantic explosion of green energy that breaks the ground. Smoke begins to spread along with that colossal and extremely frightening aura. The demon, summoning several blades, asserts that none of them will escape his wrath. His attacks are directed at the blonde, while he shouts for her to go to hell at once, amidst laughter. When these attacks were close, the old woman protected the girl before she could be hit. The elder claims she will handle the demon while the others escort Miss Zhao away, as her importance is too high to let her die at the hands of the ghost. The hot-headed spirit asks if she really plans to defeat him alone. Reaffirming that no one will leave there alive, he forms several seals with his many arms. He shouts, threatening to bury everyone there that very day, and thus forms a formation. Now in the form of a seal, it falls towards the location where the group is. The old woman quickly realizes that this is the formation of the Soul Devourer. She then shouts for everyone to use their auras to protect their bodies. One of the women doesn't have enough time and, therefore, begins to feel her body burning and agonizes. Her screams are heard as her life drains away along with her skin and flesh. The blonde is shocked and frightened by the wicked scene that just unfolded before her. Thus, she takes out a special bow from her storage ring, along with an arrow made entirely of energy. Drawing the weapon's string, she can only say that this is a unique case, and therefore she will need to use ranged attacks. She informs that she will focus on attacking the ghost's face to manage to escape from there. Her aura arrow begins to magically alter its trajectory, thus hitting the demonic face with enormous mastery, along with a great explosion. Even so, that demon informs that this is nothing compared to its immense power. The old woman says that her vital and magical energy is greatly weakened due to the formation, and therefore, they will not be able to cause any damage to it. Soon the spirit begins to inflate its mouth with something, this being a thick and completely dense smoke. Zhao Yutang realizes that the spirit is causing the corpses to resurrect. Thus, her former companion began to move in a zombified and strange manner. But, with extreme agility, the corpse was able to lunge at her all at once. With quick thinking, the blonde pulls something from her storage ring, this being a sword used to cut the zombified woman in half. The old woman then assumes she will control the poisoned gas, and therefore, the girl must take care of the blood puppets as soon as she can, thus revealing that there is no salvation for any of her companions. But, in the blonde's vision, she can see the remorse and part of the face of those she once called friends. Still, with a quick slash of her sword, she was able to finish off the monster. But, with the other adversary there, she decides to perform a maneuver in the air to finish it off. But unexpectedly, Yutang heard that dead body calling her name, thus, hesitating to attack her former friend who seemed to have regained consciousness. But it was all in her head, as the monster still attacked her and tore a part of her abdomen with a single strike. Our blonde could only cough blood and regain consciousness due to this damage. And thus she gripped her weapon with more eagerness and veracity, soon after, making an X-shaped cut to finish the fight. Still, her injury is very severe. With blood dripping from her mouth and abdomen, she can only fall to the ground. Her weapon disintegrates in the wind along with the rain as she chokes on her own blood. She admits it was unexpected and wonders if this was really about blood puppets. Yutang, in thought, wonders if the old woman survived with her, and says that if she had known about this danger, she wouldn't have brought so many people. The two hypnotized individuals who arrived at the scene watch her as one of them pulls out a knife. The elder tries to scream the blonde's name. Soon the spirit attacks her and asks how she dares to be distracted. And behind the barrier, the demon says it wants to see how long the woman's turtle shell will last. The blonde on the ground admits it is her fault, as the old woman was also dragged into this because of her. Then the knife flies towards her quickly, ready to end her life. All we can hear is her cursing herself as blood spreads through the air. But unexpectedly the knife did not hit her, but rather the ground beside her, for the head of the one who attacked her was ripped off in one go. A girl informs that she felt the blonde's vitality draining very quickly and thus ran over. This is Zhao Hongling, leader of the Phoenix Group, who states that it is too early for Yutang to die. She recognizes her while the man beside her stares at the girl, apparently younger, but we are surprised by the head of the young man flying, just as the blonde calls her grandma. The elder is startled seeing what just happened, for the famous Miss Hongling is present at the scene. The demon laughs as it realizes that this little girl is the mere help that came to reinforce the women. Then the spirit, feeling offended, says that she is a mere mortal and therefore will not be able to fight against this fragment of a sword. It informs that even if the emperor came here, he would have no chance at all. Quickly, the mouth of that insolent spirit was silenced by the attack of the old woman with a childlike appearance. Thus she ends up undoing the formation made earlier by the ghostly face. The blonde realizes that just one strike was enough and admits that her grandmother is truly an amazing person. Soon, the young-looking one informs that her granddaughter was injured, and if she had attacked from the beginning, she wouldn't have been hurt as she was. Thus, she extends a medicine and tells her to drink it quickly. The girl obeys, and then asks her grandmother if her missing friend can be found by her. Soon, she informs that her target is the protagonist, and therefore, he must be saved. The elder states that she knows all this, and thus she does not need to worry and should focus on her rest. Our girl gets confused about the issue of resting until her vision starts to blur. When the girl falls asleep, the youngest calls for the old woman, who promptly responds. The old woman ends up questioning where the companion her granddaughter mentioned earlier is. Soon the elder replies that, according to her guesses and Yu Tang's, he should be in a very abundant and extreme amount of yin. The old woman, with her sword in hand, informs that there is no need for further explanations. She then states that she can still find the place with the highest amount of yin. In a funny way, the sword begins to float and tries to rise, but it soon ends up falling in a presumptuous and even ridiculous manner. She tells everyone to hurry, as they need to take the blonde to HQ and treat her wounds, while the elder will go to the supposed location with the highest amount of yin. She then darts towards that location, informing that she will see them later. We can see the abandoned factory where our protagonist is located. His ex-girlfriend, now possessed by a demon, begins to perform a ritual. The fox, along with the protagonist, asks what she is doing. Our protagonist informs that she is absorbing the yang power from these men to increase her own powers, and the price is that she will age. Suddenly something catches her attention, which is a huge amount of energy. She then questions who is bothering her at this very moment. Until, suddenly, we can see the blonde's grandmother outside. Yanhui opens the door with a sulky and distressed face. She wonders what a girl is doing there, and more importantly, questions if she is hurt or lost. The younger-looking one calls the girl Auntie and ends up saying that the little bastard is there. Confusion is visible on the face of the protagonist's ex with this affirmative statement. Inside the place, the little fox asks if it's not bad to leave him unconscious when he wakes up, but our protagonist explains that he doesn't need to worry, as he is resilient. Until, suddenly, a huge explosion occurs, startling him at first. Something flew from the door to there and ended up crashing against the wall, this being the protagonist's ex, who is now impaled by the little girl's enormous sword. The girl, floating, informs that they are just getting started, so Yanhui cannot be complaining. Sitting on the sword, the little one questions if the younger girl will not respond. That was extremely unexpected for the ex-protagonist, and the younger-looking one ends up asking her to at least fight a little. With her hands covered in green energy, the girl begins to pull the sword from her chest, thus ripping it out and cursing as she throws the sword up. The little girl starts to float in the air, finding the scene amusing from her point of view. Then, the ex-protagonist throws the sword while telling that brat to go to hell. The attack was powerful and especially strong to an immeasurable level. Still, the wound in her chest begins to throb with pain, while her shirt tries to bear the weight of her melons. She wonders in thought who that brat is. On top of the sword, the apparently younger girl asks if that's all, as the fight seems to have reached its end. The ex-protagonist then asks her demon what she can do, as she is no match for her. But upon receiving no response from the demon, she remains confused. We can see a day ago, in an unknown house to us, where the protagonist's board game friend is staring at her past self. Both seem uncomfortable with that strange connection. But soon this is broken by the girl, who lets out a sigh. She reveals that in fact, she is tense because this is game number 146 that has just begun. But suddenly, something bursts into her thoughts, catching her attention. This being a strong chi from a demonic sword. We can see a distant cabin in the forest, which is apparently isolated. The boy in the demon's hands starts screaming to be let go. Then, the boy asks if the entity knows who he is. He ends up revealing that he is a member of the celestial demon sect. The demon is not surprised by this, and even recalls that the young man is indeed from the celestial demon sect, but informs that a sect as good as fertilizer like that will not be difficult for him to massacre. With tearful eyes, he realizes that this chi is extremely powerful, and therefore asks for help from someone. Suddenly, a huge explosion occurs at the door of the residence where the demon was sheltering. We can see a huge trail of dust rising and falling from the entrance that was opened. Suddenly, a leg passes by, belonging to a woman who has just entered. She stomps down hard and imposing against the ground, almost like a threat. The spirit itself realizes that this chi is not normal, as it belongs to someone unique. The one in front of him is, in fact, his long-awaited mistress. Crying, and with a red face, he starts shouting for her while running in her direction. The girl ends up pushing him with her foot and telling him to stop making such a fuss, to which he agrees. The girl recognizes him as the demon who allied with He Yanhui. He agrees and says that she is right and thinks that this familiar feeling of being stepped on is indeed his master. The girl heard someone asking to be saved, this being the boy from before, who explains he is the son of the patriarch of the celestial demon sect, and therefore must let him go, and then he will do whatever she wants. Then the young man explains that the sect specializes in cultivating magic and is no less powerful than the Phoenix group. The girl seems surprised by such a statement, and then approaches. Soon, sitting on the demon and saying that she lacks men, only dogs to obey her. She tells the flame spirit to keep the boy alive, as he is a good lad, to which the spirit confirms. The green-haired boy thanks for having his life saved. but with a vacant look, he states that now that his life has been spared, he will be her slave. However, he quickly ends up falling asleep, infuriating the demon who tells him not to be foolish and disrespectful to his mistress. Soon, the spirit decides to explain his plan, which is to take He Yanhui as his host to regain his strength. Currently, he is hiding in an abandoned factory and, at the current pace, the demon estimates he can regain his strength in less than 10 days. The girl then asks if He Yanhui is completely under his control, to which he affirms that she is a lustful woman and therefore easily manipulable. Our young lady states that this is not one of the best plans, but it will still work, and anyway, she has to go after a certain someone named Lin Mo. In the end, Han Xinyi reveals she has a game that is not over yet and, therefore, cannot allow anything to happen to her other challenger, to which the demon confirms. The spirit then says it's better for his mistress to come get the fragments as soon as possible, since the matter is getting much bigger and worse by the second. But the girl asserts that there is no need to rush, as the Emperor has also come to this world, leaving the demon completely perplexed. The young woman reveals that the memories between the fragments of the demon sword do not communicate with each other, but some time ago she managed to feel a breath from one fragment. But when she was about to arrive, the key of the sword was completely dissipated by a stronger key that she had only seen in the Emperor in 1,000 years. The demon thinks he should use He Yanhui merely as bait to attract the Emperor, then tells her to go and kill that brat. She wonders how she can be capable of killing that girl, as she has never been in a major battle since she was a child and knows nothing of martial arts. Soon, the apparently younger girl decides to use her secret sword technique, and the protagonist's ex claims she doesn't even know how to fight or how to enter combat, and thus the demon assumes the other is useless and will take control of the body. Then, her pupils dilate in a different shape while she says that this is all special. Since the old woman is a waste, he cannot let her live another second. Amidst macabre laughter, the spirit begins to advance with the girl's body towards the apparently younger one, until suddenly a sword flies into his back while he maintains a bizarre smile. Quickly, the spirit manages to deflect the sword with a sidekick, thus laughing and taking that weapon as his to use as he pleases. Throwing the blade, he asks if Grandma likes to play with flying swords. Soon after, he ends up launching the second sword while saying he will return it to her since she enjoys such silly games. The little lady manages to protect herself using a purple spiritual barrier, deflecting the attacks in another direction. The demon ends up invoking an artifact and says he will give her a second little gift, being this a gigantic viper advancing towards the little grandma all at once. The girl seems impressed that it is a long-lost secret technique, but unfortunately the power is much less than what is written in the book. Then the snake prepares a deadly attack, but the girl says that since Yanhui is angry, it will soon be much easier to get rid of her. With the sword in hand, she says that if she weren't always crying, then she would be ashamed to kill her in one go. Due to her immense weakness, the snake ends up biting and receiving a direct cut to its mouth. It ends up being split by the gigantic blow from the girl who threw her head up. Suddenly, that enormous energy that was launched from the serpent's mouth flew towards the skies. Its form began to dissolve because its technique had been completely defeated. In the sky of the place, we can see someone observing the whole scene, this being the board game companion of our protagonist who watches all of that in her demonic form. We can see the face of the protagonist's ex deforming as the spirit leaves her body and mind. The purple energy completely leaving her body ends up gathering in a single point, thus forming a fragment of the previously lost sword of the demonic girl. Soon, the old woman, apparently younger, says that she finally decided to abandon her host to stop being useless. She had never thought it would be a sword, much less a simple broken sword, and for that reason, she feels somewhat disappointed, until a fear takes over, and this is due to the sword feeling offended by being called broken. Soon, the protagonist's companion says that she is very shameless for hitting a dog when the owner is not around, and therefore, she should be more careful. The girl, completely sweaty from tension, recognizes this chi as that of a high-level underworld demon. Then her breath starts to falter and catch in her throat as she feels such pressure. Turning her face slowly, she observes this frightening scene. Her breath cannot return, and she feels suffocated by this tide of power difference. Staring at the girl above her, the grandma can only tremble as she sees the terrifying scene. The horned girl says that she is really shameless for staring at her so boldly. Suddenly, with her high speed, the demoness disappears from above the old woman. With the sword in hand, she ends up saying that she is not surprised it was so hard to find since her chi was being suppressed by the apparently older girl. She tries to use her purple energy to avoid the attack and defeat that demonic girl, thus using the 8th level Taoist sealing technique, causing pink ribbons to begin covering the girl's face and body. But among those ribbons, it was possible to see a clear look of threat from someone who is extremely superior to that technique. When the spell was completing, the ribbons began to change to a deep orange hue. Thus, the nails anchored to the ground, finishing the invocation of her sealing technique. The grandma ends up using the power of this body that belongs to her to borrow the 10,000 talismans from the 8 directions, soon suppressing the evil of the 10,000 talismans to also seal the demon. Even so, a pink energy began to emanate from that enormous sealing. Still tense, she uses 4 celestial flames to enhance the effectiveness of the spell, thus invoking the red lotus seal from the sky of evil to assist in all of this. Then, completely enclosing the girl and sealing her, she begins to recite a greater vow, where she will use the law of equality to make all demons tremble and hide. Thus, she decides to combine the techniques to perform her final spell. The Buddha made of energy closes its hands in prayer as its tears fall. Suddenly a crack suddenly appears. Thus, the enormous statue that has just emerged begins to break deeply due to the power of the one who was sealed. This was not the result she expected. It simply should not be possible. A strong red light begins to radiate from the figure. She heard that Hongling is the strongest fighter and that no one can surpass her, but she is not impressed with the strength of the one said to be the strongest. It's time to end this brat's fun. Even apprehensive, she says that things are still not over. Already by her side, the strange woman is next to her, curious to know what has not ended yet. At that moment, the girl realized she was in serious trouble, as her belly had been sliced without her noticing. The demon woman says that when she says it's over, it really is over. Then she continues on her path, while the poor, economically disadvantaged redhead falls to the ground. She laments to her master because the body she has now is very weak, and even with total control over it, she would be unable to use a fraction of her strength. Sweating cold due to bleeding, the modestly tall girl struggles to reach something. She needs to retrieve her blade to try to do something. After all this time, she must have certainly realized. Only that even with her there, it still hasn't appeared. The well-endowed friend looks back, seeing the blade approaching her. But this does not impress her. She simply prepared to deflect it with her own weapon. That metal seemed like butter compared to the blade she possessed. What she really wanted was to use Yu Tang to know what this one intended to do. But it's a pity that she is useless. Not to mention that she can't even serve as a test. This makes her sigh a bit frustrated with the ease of her challenge. In the silence, she shouts loudly for the immortal emperor. Surely he had seen enough and could appear and come out from where he was hiding. Provoking him, she said he must be like the men of this world and has become a great coward. The strongest man is mediocre, unable to rule the world with such little power. For if that's the case, it's simply disgusting, starting with that citizen of modest height. She shouts once more so that all those hiding can hear. If she is not stopped now, she will take everyone with one-way first-class tickets to find out if there is life after death. If they want to do something, they better hurry, because she will count to 3. One of the girls covers her mouth to say nothing. The boy is inside the cage, doing nothing. The demonic girl begins her countdown. A drip falls on his head. He appears oblivious to the situation, until suddenly he decides to pay attention to life. 2 seconds of the countdown had already passed. Then a desperate voice screams, begging not to be sent to the world of longing. Lying on the ground, the little one is agonizing. The one with silver hair continues to hold her mouth. Meanwhile, the demon woman was quite pleased with this manifestation. But since nothing was done, the countdown ends, and a great pillar of energy rises, reaching the sky. That place had become the epicenter of a powerful manifestation of energy. Before it, a powerful whirlwind had formed. Its light is so strong that one must cover their eyes to avoid being blinded. Finally, the one she had been waiting for had appeared in the place. This made her happy, as she was sure the immortal emperor had not died and was alive. Far from there, someone wonders what had happened to the sky. Looking at the camera, he says that a pillar of light formed at the abandoned factory. Even though it was a cold day, it is very warm around the light, enough to drive away the rain. Anxious about what is happening, he took the phone from the hands of the one recording. He showed that the light had pushed away the lights in the sky. It could be the lightning coming from a satellite. Then, he saw something coming out of the clouds. Someone was watching that live stream. She was upset because the transmission signal dropped as soon as the lightning appeared. Inside the house, someone asked if she has done her homework, as she spends all day in front of her phone, and she says she has done the assignments. Hongxi, where the lightning appeared, is far from there, and it is where Lin Mo currently lives. First searching for Yan Hui, and now this pillar of light. The day has been long and not calm. As soon as she opened the door, the emperor appeared, pushing the demon woman by the head. Even after they left, the wind continued to blow through the place. Finally, the air calms, and the window is destroyed. The girl has no idea what just happened there. They simply crossed the entire building. The demoness says that without the sacred sword, he is like an old man without Tadalafil, completely useless. Delivering a blow, she says that now he is just a punching bag. The force of the impact sends him crashing to the ground, destroying the nearby structures. Not satisfied, she began to condense aura between her hands. She was preparing a massive attack. To prepare it, she is chanting an incantation. That dark power pierces the sky like a sword, until a peculiar shape begins to emerge above. Among the clouds, they resemble a huge pair of eyes, which reveals itself as a massive creature, similar to a gigantic snake. Opening its massive jaw, it releases a beam of energy towards the immortal emperor. Above, she is incredulous that he was unable to dodge this attack, but soon she realizes that things did not go as planned. He is unscathed. The girl did not expect him to have such a strong protective seal. It's not fair. He knew that demon kings are cruel, but it seems their descendants are even more so, not caring for innocent lives. Seeing her, he realizes that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and that the son is identical to the father. This made her furious, as someone like him has no right to meddle in her family's affairs. The serpent launches a massive attack towards the city. She doesn't care about the civilians and says they can live as long as the emperor dies. The serpent closes its mouth, gathering more energy. This time, it strikes the ground with a continuous beam, launching it straight through the city. Wherever the beam passed, the destruction is total, and the flames burn relentlessly. From above, the Demon King contemplates what she has done. She is pleased, as his defense has now cracked, and she waits to see what the Emperor is capable of. Two of his fingers begin to accumulate energy. He moves them delicately, to her surprise. This movement is not strange, and she recognizes it. It is a sword technique. As soon as she realizes the serpent has already been hit, then, looking at the creature, she notices that the damage has been severe. Finally, after some time, the Emperor has a sword in hand. Now it is with him. That is a good embryo, and it was certainly worth the wait. In light of this, she realizes he had placed a sticker on the sword when she wasn't looking, in addition to making her reveal her weakness. But his plan would only work if he could use the trash in his hands. Making a circle with the sword, he prepares a technique, until he brings down his sword, executing a cut. It is a secret technique, the refinement of divine fire. This pleased her, as he always has something new to show. An intense clash between the two energies occurs. The two begin to collide with extreme speed through the sky, until, reacting quickly, the Demon King catches him off guard. After several attacks, she manages to execute a cut on him. Even so, he smiles as he has finally arrived, just didn't expect it to be slower than the sword. Then the figure representing him disappears, and rays of light emanate from him. Seeing that the figure was burned, she realizes it was a clone, but doesn't know what that was that passed through him. Then, a small paper doll appears before her, completely pierced. Meanwhile, two fighter jets approach, unleashing bursts of fire. She thinks this was also part of the Emperor's plans, but modern weapons have no aura. They are just projectiles with speed. Not impressed by this, she executes a movement with her sword, jokingly saying they are brave. Even so, one of the jets manages to evade the aura attack, launching a missile towards its target. But for her, that attack is too slow. However, the missile was able to correct its course. This, the Demon King did not expect. Being engulfed in a massive explosion, the target had been defined, and the jets continue to fire their weapons. A large barrage of missiles explodes upon contact. Everything is going according to his plan, but modern weapons won't be able to hold her for much longer than a minute. Without his sword, he is no challenge for her, so he needs something as powerful as his sacred sword. The forge had already been completed during the battle. Now, only one last crucial step remains. He sighs, as he will now begin the cooling process. With little fuel available, they prepare to return to base, until an eruption occurs on the city ground. A huge misshapen hand grows towards the sky. It grabs one of the jets. On the radio, he warns the others to get away from there as soon as possible. The other jet tries to distance itself from that hand, but it is struck by her, who used its companion as a weapon. A creature without eyes appears, roaring furiously. The creature is colossal, and near it, the buildings are like small structures. From above, the Demon King says, "This is what happens when they meddle in her fight. Now they all need to die." Someone tells her that this beast is walking spiritual energy, an excellent opportunity to end the Emperor before he executes what he has planned. However, from above, something catches her attention, causing her focus to be captured. A small, sniveling child is crying, searching for his father. While crying, he says he is very scared. While she screams for her father, one of the creature's paws moves toward her. It won't be long before he turns into pate. The Demon King watches closely. The little boy continues to cry, unaware that he is about to become sandwich filling. This scene made her close her eyes and start to remember something, from when she was also small and looking for her father. With all this destruction, the city is in chaos and all exits are congested. In the middle of the traffic, a call goes unanswered. The young man says his wife never answers him, even when it's important. Unfortunately, they can't get a phone signal. But from the news, they discover that the monster that had appeared in the city center has suddenly disappeared. Inside the car, the young man is worried about the rain that has started, and his daughter says she saw on the news that there was no rain forecast for that day. Beside the bridge, a large cyclone is forming, gathering water in its body. Some curious onlookers get out of their cars to film it, completely dissociated from reality and the risk it may represent. In the midst of it is the Emperor's glowing sword. He is the one manipulating the water to cool his sword until the energy condenses, releasing a shockwave that creates waves in the water. The force of the wave sweeps the cars off the bridge and surely must have swept away the fools who were filming. After that, what had formed there was a large volume of mist. The girl gets out of the car, defying her father's warnings to stay inside. She looks at where the river was and doesn't understand how this is possible. All the water that was down there has disappeared, as if it had been drained. Above, the Emperor stands before his sword. He brings one of his hands closer to the weapon's hilt. As soon as he touches it, an intense luminous energy is released. The source of light could be seen even within the mist. So great is the energy released that the fog is immediately pushed away from the place. Now, the blade he has been preparing is ready to slice the unwary. He looks at the fruit of his effort. That had been a wait too long. In the mist, the Demon King says he has been foolish while reaching out to a child. She says she wasn't there waiting for him. The little snot-nosed boy smiles, for he has found his irresponsible parent. They embrace, and the Demon King tells the adult to get out of there, as the place is not safe. It's not her style to prolong fights, so she intends to end this quickly, just as they did in her other life. In light of this, the Emperor agrees with her. Positioning his sword above his head, she begins to chant an invocation ritual for the street blocker. Not to be left behind, the Emperor also invokes an entity, but his has Christian colors. She swings her sword, unleashing a dark attack. The Emperor reacts with an attack of Shunin hero color. The energies collide in the sky violently. That was what she was waiting for. And since he has a sword now, there's no room for excuses when he loses. Positioning his fingers in front of his face, the Emperor prays. His face bears markings, and the sword he had made disintegrates. Looking at that, the Demon King realizes this is a forbidden sword technique. That's what he did last time, and she should have prepared her demonic sword for this. As in its current state, it is no match. Without the strength to resist the hero's technique, she is struck. A great beam of light continues advancing toward her. In the sky, a mysterious rift begins to appear. Opening slowly, it reveals another dimension. In the face of such power, even the sky is cracking. Completely wounded and without strength, she acknowledges that this is excessive. The Emperor stands before her, watching her closely. Looking at her, he says a winner has already been defined. But someone says that things have only just begun. Very wounded, the Demon King says something about what she is seeing. That was the other half of the magic sword. The sword speaks and says it had hidden very well to gather its pieces, but the woman had many of them with her. Very wounded, she says that not even that fake sword would be able to deal a fatal blow to her. Soon she will recover from her injuries, and unlike him, she still has a magic sword. Even if it is a mediocre victory, the winner had already been defined. Unexpectedly, the sword pierces her from behind, exiting through the middle of her chest. The evil sword does not take orders from someone whose energy is so weak. Now, both will die in that place. The evil sword wanted to start with the weaker one first. Sending her back home, in this case, hell, it advances swiftly. So he strikes violently the place where the Demon King was. But something was wrong there. There were missing entrails, and only concrete remained. In a mocking manner, he said that the Emperor played the hero and saved the damsel in distress, but he is just a bovine. Almost out of strength, she asks to be placed on the ground, as she did not consent to this touch. Being saved by the Emperor is worse than being cut by the evil sword, and more hateful than being a bald woman. Looking at her, he asked her not to act deconstructed and to save her energy if she didn't want to die right there. He has a plan, but he needs her help. The sword had transformed into a huge monster, and as a good gossip, she wanted to know what they were whispering about. This made her furious, as she also wanted to listen, since she loves a good gossip. With her eyes closed, the Emperor prepares another spell. It is the Prison of Light, and several beams of energy appear descending from the sky. They strike the monster sword, pinning it to the ground. This left her surprised, as now, besides being unable to move, she wouldn't find out what they were gossiping about in front of her. This prison can only be destroyed with Yang power. It is not possible that a powerful sword like her cannot use a bit of Yang energy, and maybe she really can't, besides being incompatible with this new world. This comment left the sword so outraged that if she had a traditional brain, she would have suffered a severe stroke. Gathering her strength, she breaks the prison, showing her physique of a juice enthusiast. The sword was not afraid of needles, nor of underground laboratories. Showing her shape, she asked the powerful emperor if he still has the courage to disrespect that physique with 3% body fat. Preparing a powerful punch, she says he has little key and is holding a dying nag in his lap. Besides being shameful, she will send both of them to hell now. However, with the girl in his lap, the emperor snaps his fingers. The monster sword was struck above what would be her floating rib. If she had a liver and were an alcoholic, it would have been fatal. Realizing that the damage was extensive, she wonders how it was possible. It seems she really was an alcoholic. As she collected all the fragments, his piece must also be in this trembling body. He transformed this fragment into bait after refining it. It was his trump card against the demon, but he ended up using it against the sword. The monster panics as her yang energy is leaving along with her rented shape, running out of juice in her veins. Now it is the Demon King's turn to do her part, which, to the sword's displeasure, began to absorb her energy. Returning to being a thin and withered object, the sword becomes desperate as she wanted to stay in shape. With a clink on her blade, she curses them. She was right. The sealed yang power in the sword is still in his body. Now it is time for them to settle their differences. A large tongue falls in front of them. That is the beast of chaos, and the sword celebrates, for God had not abandoned her. Happy, she wishes them both good luck, having to deal with this monstrous creature now. Looking at the emperor, she says she acted as agreed. Now she wants to know what the next step is. He looks intently at the sky. Their next step is to fix that crack. But she is a demon. She only learned destruction techniques. Repair is not her forte. He released her to leave, as he can do this alone. He just asked her to remember what she promised him. Faced with the problem, he joins his hands and his eyes begin to shine. Separating the palms of his hands, there is a small source of energy. He releases it to the creature, commanding it to return to the other side. Thus, he orders the fissure to close, and the creature that was in it was pushed away. Immediately, the crack begins to close in the sky. Seeing all that, the demon is impressed by so much power. With his mouth full of blood, he says it is not that simple. He coughs, completely exhausted. Having done that left him with not a drop of energy remaining. Unexpectedly, a hand holds him, preventing him from being sucked into the crack. The demon woman asks him to hold on a little longer. Demon tradition says that the more lives they take, the stronger they become. But she did not get stronger after all that killing, and realized that her intention was just to provoke him and then bring people back to life. This, for some hard-to-understand reason, left the demon with flushed cheeks. Believing in her, he would resolve the situation and let her deal with the consequences, for he believes in the word of the Demon King. He hoped she wouldn't change her mind after saving him, and now she is literally saving him. Already with her body inside the rift, she tries to pull him back. Then she warns him that it is closing and that he is not moving. Realizing that the worst would happen, she calls him one more time. Calmly, he says that even knowing people would live again, she still saved that little snot. Hearing this, she was immediately surprised. The emperor says a few more things to her, which went unheard. Finally, the rift closes, and he is left on the other side. This left her outraged for not having been able to, until she notices something unusual nearby. A small flame figure, which is in her hands. The sun is setting, and she is sitting atop a building. Thoughtful, she looks at what the emperor had left for her. This makes her sigh, a bit disappointed. Raising her hand high, she begins to gather a large amount of energy. And from this enormous sphere, several beams start to shoot out across the city. The intense glow reflects on her face, but as the sphere diminishes, the glow also fades away. Once the energy is gone, she coughs a lot, weakened by what she had done. Reviving a person costs 100 years of cultivation, and all those people would cost much more. Finally, she had done everything she had promised. The doll she had received is dissolving in the sky. Meanwhile, she remembers the immortal emperor, especially when she was dying in his arms. For she had blushed at what she had heard from him. For some reason, her mind can't shake that gray-haired figure. All that crosses her thoughts is the image of his face. Now, she remembers him with a special fondness. The woman is lying in her bed, sleeping like a rock. In her mind, thoughts pass that the woman with red eyes is a demon and that they shouldn't mess with her. A demon extends a sword to her to kill the immortal spy who had already killed many of her kind. But she is just a child. The adult urges her to get the job done quickly. Her hands are hesitant before the task. With patience running thin, the adult pushes her. Thus, the blade penetrates the prisoner's belly. That had been too intense, for she was just a child. This kindness is a weakness that would one day turn against her, says the adult. Gradually, the dream begins to change. It is she who should think better about this. Now her eyes encounter something else. The immortal emperor is being sucked into the rift. She just wants him to shut up and try to be saved, but he comments on what she did to the lost child. Those words leave her agonized, and she asks him to be quiet. But the emperor only responds with a discreet smile. He knew she wasn't a good person, but he didn't expect her to be bad. After this troubled and intense dream, she gets up from her bed. Her hands grip the sheet, for she is shaken. At a large table, a small shadow woman recounts what happened last week. The two fought and destroyed half the city, and a clash of swords even cut through the sky. At the end of it all, an unknown force brought back everyone who had died, but they can't expect that to happen again. One person says they should sit and wait for death if they are to trust these clowns. She wants to know what else they can do besides nothing. She is Yang Tianyu. The holy Yaoqi doesn't believe that a sword cut was capable of separating the sky and opening a rift. The sword saint felt embarrassed by this narrative, as she is unaware of such a technique. Li Shinran says she shouldn't feel that way, as no immortal would be able to make a hole in the sky. The guy who likes body modifications says that the elder Zhao turned into nostalgia with a single blow, and they wouldn't stand a chance either. Yu Tang, who has ample attributes, asks his grandma if the people there gathered just to complain. Grandma Bayan told her granddaughter to be more polite, as she had already spoken with another elder about how they would deal with this problem. Since ancient times, her clan has cared for the oracles, arms of the divine path that govern the world today, defending the righteous path and eliminating heretics. But the oracle left an enigmatic message, to drink this tear and do what is right, and they sealed it even without knowing its effects. The blonde wants to know what this tear has to do with them and their plans. Your grandmother remembers that when she arrived at the temple, she had so many wounds that her chance of survival was slim, which made the blonde want to know how she is still breathing. The seal they had made broke, and its contents decided to merge with her. She is now the daughter of the destiny of paradise. This is their trump card, and they need to help Yu Tang practice. One of them wants to suggest a man from his clan to pair with her, assisting in her cultivation. But the little shadow says it needs to be a person with pure yang energy, which shocks the blonde that they are taking this seriously. A man with that energy is naturally very handsome, so they would have to choose the most beautiful one, which makes the blonde even more uncomfortable. The guy with the piercing says it also needs to be someone young, as an age difference is counterproductive, and they should look in schools. That's why there's a beauty contest going on. Hearing this, the blonde was upset that she couldn't voice her opinion on it. Now the girl with the red eyes has learned about this news. This is necessary for Yu Tang to be able to double his cultivation. It will be a beauty contest among students, which puts him on the list of potential candidates. She wants him to win so they can get closer to the Phoenix group and the Daughter of Destiny. In the meeting, they talked about one more thing as well, and she wants to listen. They will use everything they can to find the Emperor and His Majesty. After hearing this, she let the young man go. A week has passed since everything, and her aura has still not recovered. This body is weak, and since her last resurrection, her foundations have been damaged. Even though this world is not dangerous, things have become complicated with the rebellion of the magic sword, as the Emperor and the demon sword are her enemies. She will stay hidden as Han Xinyi for now, but while recovering, she will go after the sword first. She says she will keep this pot, and the man tells her to go to the next register. He also asked if she likes monarchs, which made her embarrassed. A little girl with fox ears greets her master. She wants to know if he is okay, but the young man is meditating, very focused. However, he had warned her to observe Yu Tang with the paper doll, so she summarizes to him what happened in the meeting. She didn't hear well, but she mentioned the beauty contest and about doubling her cultivation to face the Demon King. Besides that, they want to know where her master and the demon are, so the young man dismisses her, as he needs to concentrate. The use of forbidden techniques affects this mortal body. It's as if he has no power at all, and he will have to keep Lin Mo below the radar for a while. He makes a precise move on the board. His opponent had lost once again to him. She acknowledges this but thinks she only let him win because he was kidnapped because of her, and she believes the mortal would never defeat her. She remembered that she had promised him a wish if he defeated her, and that from a guy like him, it must be a request to go out together or something like that. To her surprise, he said that it was boring and they would talk about it another time. She hadn't played well today. She even seemed sleepy and should have washed her face before going to school. This made her furious, as she tried to be nice to the mortal, but that only inflated his ego more. She would never let him win again. A young girl greets Lin Mo as she hadn't seen him all day. She said there's a beauty contest going on, and she and her sister would vote for him, but the young man is not on the list. This is too boring, so he doesn't want to participate. It's impossible for a vain person to find such a contest boring, so she thought that he was actually playing hard to get. Therefore, she would be the one to sign him up for the contest. It seems that holding such a contest in schools was too easy. So far, the first place is held by a smelly nerd with a visual impairment. She refuses to marry that clown, until she came across Lin Mo among them. In front of her cell phone, the girl calls her friends to see this. It's a video of Shen playing guitar. The young man's charisma made them feel a little moist, in the mouth, of course. But she says they are animals who are devouring Lin Mo with their eyes. Wisely, one of them says that the same one who criticizes had liked and saved that video. Not to mention that she even downloaded it to watch later, alone, in the dark, which is very suspicious. Trying to defend herself, she says they are classmates and that it's just sympathy on her part. Ready to set the cabaret on fire, the colleague says she knows the girl desperately wants to sleep with Lin Mo in the same bed. She responds by shouting that she would love to do that, because he is handsome, fit, and well endowed, and if she's being honest, it shouldn't be a problem. Far away, two envious ones call her superficial, but in reality, they wanted to be the targets of that attention. He swore he would win the contest and spends 8 hours a day taking care of his photos. Lin Mo had already surpassed him, and in first place is a childish comedian who looks like a pet shop animal. He says he will work even harder, but his friend brings him back to reality, saying he doesn't have many chances. Someone says the great Shen Lidian is there. The androgynous and effeminate boy with a visual genetic deficit walks through the halls being hit on. Then he says he's done for today, because now he wants to talk to Yu Tang alone. She thinks he probably doesn't even know the true reason for the contest, but she's curious to know what he has to say. In a different voice, he says he hopes to continue being supported by them, but Yu Tang noticed this change. The boy approaches with some cookies he made for her, but his voice changed when he asked her to try one. But she refuses to eat something that Clown made, because he looks like someone who doesn't wash his hands. She leaves calling him disgusting, but she realized that the effect on her voice produced by the divine demon doesn't affect her. Maybe this is because she is the daughter of destiny. Yu Tang is definitely irritated, as she feels disgusted by the guy with glasses. She knows he is a cultivator who uses this ability to succeed with girls, and she doesn't want to join him. But he is already on her grandmother's list, so she might not be able to tell her who he really is. While sitting at the table, her friend says that Lin Mo has appeared. It's too rare to see him alone. Shen has been attracting all the girls lately, and Yu Tang had forgotten he is in second place. The colleague says she should go talk to him, which made her completely blush. So great is the embarrassment that she didn't even think of it as a possibility, because they are just friends, and nothing more than that. However, she didn't finish the sentence. Her mouth refused to say they are just friends. She remembered when he playfully punched her in the spleen. Indeed, they are just a couple of friends. But that's not what her memories tell her. Soon she remembered his shirt open, revealing a modestly toned chest. Her colleague says she didn't hear her right and wants to know if they are just classmates. However, saying that with a nosebleed is not very reliable. Given what she felt when thinking about that boy, she hurried out of the cafeteria. Yu Tang walks down the hallway, completely immersed in her conflicting feelings. Some boys intend to talk to her. Her goal is to take better photos of him, because without that, it will be hard to beat Shen with her vocal skills. She has the best photographers in the city at her disposal, and Lin Mo would certainly not refuse the invitation. But as soon as she offered the proposal to him, he immediately declined, and he even said that if she is so idle, she should look for a part-time job. Not to mention that she is just bothering him. She should go find someone else to do that. And there is an even more important reason. He thinks to himself that he is not feeling well and needs to spend all his free time cultivating. But to her, he said he was recently kidnapped and prefers not to trust girls. That last one is a plausible explanation, and she accepts his words. At the gym, she punches the punching bag with all her strength. Thinking about the matter, she imagines that the blame is all hers, because she had promised to protect him. She had told him that everything would be fine, but in the end, it ended up sounding like a lie. Because of that, he no longer trusts her, and there is nothing to be done. It's a situation that fills her with rage. Thinking about all this, she starts to sob from crying so much. Imagining marrying that disgusting, almost blind guy is worse than death. She soon becomes enraged again and starts to hit the punching bag harder. A woman with huge biceps and a masculinized face asks why the gym is empty. The attendant says Yu Tang reserved the whole place for herself today. Since she arrived, she took off her shirt and started hitting the punching bag, and she hasn't stopped since. A wealthy girl who paid for this, and is just a student, has wanted to fight someone for a while, and this is a good opportunity. The boy says this is a bad idea, as the little girl is quite upset with life. But the woman says she doesn't care, and even suggests giving the money back to the girl, as she's not bothered at all. Approaching her, she says the girl isn't bad, but lacks resilience. And she introduced herself as the personal trainer from that gym, Hei Yunhei. The girl told her to leave, or else she would beat her up. Full of bravado, the juice friend said that if the little girl didn't keep her promise, she would be a big coward. Outside, bystanders watch as her body flies out of the first-floor window. As if that wasn't crazy enough, the blonde jumps out the window, ready to fulfill her promise to beat that citizen up. No one knows why they are fighting, but it looks more like a one-sided beating. Her mask had come off, and the person asked the young cultivator to spare her life. Removing the mask, she wants to know why she is wearing it. She has a scar on her face, and the blonde says that doesn't make any difference. She gets teased anyway. However, there are still pending matters, and she hopes to beat her up as promised, promising that if she touched her again, things would be different, and she would end up with the fishes and a big block of cement on her feet. A police officer finally arrives as there was a report of a crime in progress. Seeing the scarred woman, he recognized her as a habitual pervert with a bounty on her head. She had abused an 80-year-old man. Thus, the blonde went from executioner to heroine in the blink of an eye. In addition to receiving apologies from the bystanders, she received the reward for capturing the fugitive. Not enough, she was also interviewed for doing something so heroic. The next day, she is once again in the cafeteria, with the same feeling as the day before. The colleague thinks Yutong asked to call the red-haired girl to tell about what she did with the fugitive, but that's not it. Every time she goes out alone, she ends up making money or meeting handsome guys, and her grandma says she needs to find a partner soon. So, she wants to know if she could use that luck to capture Lin Mo. But Lin Mo is known to be cold and calculating, and she recommended that she date Shen. The other one couldn't stop coughing as she had choked. She is confident and just wants to know everything about him, what he likes, dislikes, his daily routine, blood type, address, nothing too invasive. From what it seems, Lin Mo is the redhead's best friend, like a brother. If she wants to know more about him, it would be good to start releasing the coins, as nothing is free. This made the blonde smile at her audacity. If she says something useful, she will receive 500,000 yuan. But if she talks nonsense, the redhead doesn't even listen and says she is a woman of her word. Taking something out of her bra, she said there's no turning back now. All those notes are about his habits and interests, which she has been collecting over time. Now the blonde finds herself buried in material she needs to decipher. However, there is one thing she can confirm in advance. Every day at lunch, he doesn't eat in the cafeteria. He grabs his meal and disappears, but the blonde had already noticed that. A colleague said he plays chess on the terrace with a girl every day. As soon as she learned it was a girl, the blonde was filled with jealousy and wants to know who this bold one is. Pointing to where the food is, she said the girl is right there. Then the blonde turns to see who it is, as she has never heard of anyone playing chess at that school. It's the girl with red eyes, Han Xinyi. In light of this, the blonde ended up even more surprised, because she didn't expect that. Then, looking at her, she remembered something. She is dead. She kept saying that over and over. Because of a stupid game, she was ignoring her friend's life. Her colleague tells her to stay alert, as Han Xinyi is a strong competitor, but the blonde says they are friends. At least, they used to be that way once. Sitting on the terrace with the cloudy sky, she says he has finally arrived. He says the weather is bad and there are many empty rooms. They didn't need to stay on the terrace. But their battle started on the terrace, and it will end on the terrace. She asks if that scares him, but he says she is joking and that the weather forecast for that day was rain and snow. Then, he became worried that a certain girl would get all wet and attack him with her ample, juicy attributes. Not to mention that he was kidnapped recently and doesn't trust girls, but she throws her coat to him so she won't have to apologize if he feels cold from the rain. Lin Mo looks at the coat in his hands. While his classmate watches him, with flushed cheeks, he stays alert to something, thoughtful. Meanwhile, the girl turns her face a bit annoyed. He isn't going to wear that coat, but she insists he puts it on quickly so she won't have to apologize later when it's lost. It will just be there for her to avenge the defeat from the previous day. Next time the weather is bad, he won't go to the terrace, while she just doesn't want to be misunderstood. He says the sleeves are short, but it's not tight, so she boasts that her bust size is 36. But immediately he asks what size that is, which embarrasses her. In any case, she shouldn't be thinking about that now, as the rain is approaching. It started to rain, and the girl is still burning with embarrassment. She says his mouth is cursed and that it only rained because of him, but he only saw the news. That was enough for him, and he said he was going home. As soon as he turns his back, she told Lin Mo to stop. When he lost, he told her to wash her face and come back, and that's what she did, and now it's raining. Today they will play, no matter what happens. Trying to be spontaneous, she calls him to play because she needs to win against him today. Looking at him, she felt annoyed because of the expression on his face. Irritated, she told him to go home already since he doesn't want to play with her. The girl is under the rain, with her transparent clothes and upset with Lin Mo. After venting, she discreetly looks at him. To her surprise, Lin Mo agreed to play, but only one single game. Now it's his turn in the game. Noticing they would play, she looked at him a bit happier. Just to say that, actually, it's her turn to play. Being very powerful, she spent most of her life being feared and never had a friend or someone she could trust. She was prepared to be the queen of demons, to practice genocides and lead. She didn't need to feel affection for anyone, but she can feel that in this world. someone who accepts her spontaneous invitations, someone who wanted to do things she liked to do in her company. For the first time, she felt joy in doing something like that. He sneezes, and the little girl wants to know if her master is okay. He says yes, and wants to know how the dark door is. Everything is fine. She published all the sinan she received from him, and 8 had already been sold. This way, there will be compasses for her to find yin energy. Thus, the demonic sword won't dare to be so aggressive. She should hide everything related to cultivation at home until the wall that was destroyed is repaired. Suddenly, a woman appears there, calling him by name. She wants to know what he did with Yutong, as she received several gifts from her, and the girl says she wants to talk to him. Lin Mo says he did nothing and hopes she knocks on the door next time. But they have guests, and she wants him to come down the stairs to greet them, but that would be a hassle for him, and he needs to take a shower. This upset her because Yutong is behind him, and the boy ignores her, but a marriage between them would be excellent for his family. She goes back and asks the blonde to wait because Lin Mo is taking a shower to look nicer. The woman says that she, her husband, and son will need to leave and that the blonde could stay with Lin Mo, but she just wants to say something to him and leave right after. She calls her husband to go out and says they will only return the next day after lunch, and the blonde says that's not necessary. The poor blonde just wants to apologize, but the more she talks, the more she is misunderstood. She is so nervous that she wants to go to the bathroom to relieve herself. Thus, she started walking around the house, looking for the bathroom. Then she saw a small crack open in a door. Unexpectedly, Lin Mo comes out of there, just in a towel, displaying his chiseled physique with no apparent fat, like a Greek deity. That's how he realized there was someone in front of him. In a towel, and with the piece notably marked, he told her to say what she came to do there. But she is in a fury of thoughts because all she wants is to take a close look at that piece. So she apologized to him because she wanted to go to the bathroom and didn't know where it was. He said he saw nothing and didn't understand anything, that it wasn't his intention to see that piece marking the towel, and that if he saw something, he already forgot. But remembering the luck of the daughter of destiny, he began to think if his lustful thoughts had become reality. She is sure that something very strong and intense is going to happen now, starting with her attributes. Now she doesn't know what she's feeling in her chest. Gathering courage, she tells Lin Mo that it's still too early for them to do this. Unfortunately, she didn't finish the sentence, as she felt something strong in her chest. It was a punch thrown by Lin Mo, engaged in defending his purity from voluptuous women. He mastered the technique of protecting his innocence with mastery, and he doesn't know what she wants. But it's good that she does it for herself. Already in the room, they have a slightly healthier conversation. The blonde wants to apologize to him for being unable to protect him last time. But for him, that's Yan Hui's fault, not hers. However, the blonde had bought many gifts for him as an apology and hopes he accepts them. He says it's not necessary, but if she wants to pay for the wall repair, that wouldn't be bad at all. Since it's already late, he needs to rest, and if she's done, she could go home now. Thus, she leaves his room, carefully closing the door. Outside, she leans against the wall, frustrated with their interaction. Slowly, she begins to slide down the wall, until she's sitting on the floor. This isn't the feeling she wanted in her heart right now, and she started to remember all the moments she had with Lin Mo up to that point. This made her sadder than she expected. Inside the room, he continues doing his pure boy things that only exist in fictional narratives. Meanwhile, the blonde looks at him through the broken wall. She enters his room once more, calling him. Being perfectly direct, she asked him to be her boyfriend, and she waited a bit anxiously for the answer. She said she would only say that once. She doesn't want to take advantage of him because of the kidnapping trauma, and she knows he hasn't even recovered yet. But she ended up stuttering when she was about to continue, until she said all at once that she likes taking him out for walks and likes the smell he leaves on the helmet. These phrases seem to be effective as he sweated a little. She likes how he defends his purity when he misunderstands her. He is different from the others, and she probably means nothing to him. But she will dedicate herself, and one day she will be good enough for him. All those words exhausted her. It was like she had run a marathon. Lin Mo stood up and started to walk towards her. She doesn't know what to do anymore, nor if this will push him away from her. But she is a determined girl and doesn't say anything without thinking. Giving up is not something that exists in her vocabulary. Lin Mo is now against the wall, as no man can resist declarations from a beautiful woman. The boy is sweating cold. He swallows hard at the moment and prepares to speak. He says they've only known each other for 6 months, and even so, she says she already likes him. He would like to know from her if love is something so superficial. But if that's what she wants, she should go after it, because she is capable. The girl celebrates with great happiness. She said goodbye to him because she's going home now, but she wants him to go with her tomorrow for the photo shoot. Through the window, he watches her as the blonde leaves there celebrating. The small woman asks her master if everything is okay and if something is bothering him. She wants to know why he simply didn't say no. She is the daughter of destiny, with all the luck in the world. Even though he is strong, he couldn't stop her. Even if he said no, the sky would help her get what she wants. But love is not just a matter of luck. But if luck passes through his heart, which has been alone for 10,000 years, there's also no reason to stop her. That is definitely a point to consider. People in love and simple are as stupid as the others. The next day they tell him to look at the camera. Now he is well dressed and posing for photos. In different clothes, he strikes another pose. This time he is dressed like an athlete. The blonde says these clothes don't capture his essence, and that the school uniform suits him best. It doesn't make sense to him, but the blonde insists on the school uniform. For perverse reasons, she doesn't say out loud. Now he is in more formal clothes. Finally, they reach the result of the voting. Lin Mo won, but they do not know his immediate context, so the boy would need to be tested. One of the people wants to know how they would do that. The redhead is in charge of this. If she is worried, she should show it to them. Immediately, she remembers the blonde and the reaction she might have. She scheduled the meeting for the next day, at the hotel, at 6:30 in the evening. But they never even said if they would go or not. But the world is at risk. They need to be extremely careful about this. After this dialogue, he hangs up the call. It was time to finally meet Lin Mo. The employee wants to know how they will handle what she requested. Because she wanted a change of scenery, he brought 20 school-aged girls. He ordered that their feet be tied and their legs broken, and then they be thrown into the sea with a stone tied to their feet. None of these trash compare to what is in Yutong's arms. Besides not looking exceptional in photos, Lin Mo does not seem special. One of them wants to know why Ju has a sword if she said she would come in casual clothes. She never parted with the sword and has had it her whole life. There are people from all sects there. Hongling's granddaughter is either extraordinary or just innocent. Someone warned the gray-haired girl to take it easy on the drink, as that meeting is important. She came to see Hongling. Listening to the blonde's screams all day will be unbearable. They finally arrived and she waits to see what kind of person this boy is. Immediately she was surprised by what she saw. The blonde arrived with her companion and asked if she was late. It's impossible. It's as if she could see through him. Now everyone is properly seated at the table. He went there to see if any of them have clues about the whereabouts of the venerable demon, and also because the blonde asked. But from what he sees, he cannot count on the help of those women with lustful gazes. The old woman says that staring at the boy like that will give them a bad reputation and asked Yu Tang to introduce him to them. She tells everyone that he is her boyfriend, Lin Mo, and he says they are not that. He dismissed the individual introductions, said he would eat and leave. The gray-haired one said he is really a cutie, and asked Yu Tang's puppy if he wouldn't like to stop eating to have a private chat with her. She heard he likes tea, and she would like to offer him some of the tea that only she knows how to make. That aroma is from the golden silk tea. The dishes in front of him are mediocre, and he should try that delicacy that was offered to him. The blonde immediately noticed that there was something sneaky going on. Under the girl's nail, a bit of very suspicious powder fell. It could be party powder or something else. Immediately, the blonde stands up, asking the naughty girl what she put in the tea. In her defense, the naughty one says that a girl from the Zhao family shouldn't tarnish her innocence for something she didn't do. She didn't put anything in there, and if she did, she would tear her own head off and give it as a gift. But if she didn't do anything, she would have to lend her boyfriend to her for a few days. Hearing this, the blonde was furious, filled with genuine hatred. Approaching her, pressing her attributes against hers, she asked her to repeat those words if she had the courage. She is sure that the tramp did something, but it could just be a provocation. So, she says that Lin Mo shouldn't drink what that woman offered him. The other one says that it's the boy who has to decide what he does or doesn't do. Whispering to her, she says that no one in the immortal world knows what she really is, and she is willing to tell everyone. The gray-haired one tells the girl to be careful, as it is by her mercy that she has lived for so long. The boy realized that Tian Yu is one of those naughty ones and wonders if all cultivators are like that. Once again, she asks if he would like to have some of the tea. And indeed, it seems she put something in there. Colorless and odorless, but he feels a strange energy, a type of poisonous parasite, one of the hardest to distinguish. He can't even differentiate them, which is why such a rudimentary method has persisted for so long. Everyone there saw this but did nothing. This dinner is surely a test to evaluate him. If he drinks, with his power, the poison won't take effect, which could raise suspicions. But if he rejects it, they will think he is an expert and will try to confirm that, which could make his cultivation difficult in the future, as they will always be cautious around him. This is a tough situation, and he doesn't know if he can get out of it, but a hand slaps the table and grabs the tea. The blonde drinks all the contents of the cup. This was so unexpected that Lin Mo dropped his food from the chopsticks. She drank for him and hopes they remember the kind of relationship they have. If something happens to her, they already know. "That's enough," and the old woman said she brought a treasure and wanted to show it to her. She asked if it wasn't cute, but it's just a weird rat. This is a rat that seeks yang energy, looking for people with bodies capable of cultivating, and it seems they will use it to see if Lin Mo can be her partner or not. There's just one detail about this. In his family, there isn't a single person capable of cultivating for the 18 previous generations. To her surprise, the rat starts squeaking non-stop. Without leaving the old woman's hand, it was practically going crazy. Everyone is surprised by the rat's intense reaction. The gray-haired woman tells the old woman to let the rat walk. As soon as she releases it, it quickly jumps across the table towards Lin Mo. Then it jumped towards the young man, but he repelled it with a single flick of his fingers. Since he was still eating, he asked the old woman to take care of her rat. But he said it didn't matter. It seems her friends don't like him, so he's leaving. But the blonde asks him to wait, because she wanted him to at least listen to what she has to say. The one with the veil says that the rat is always shy, even if it is a body with pure yang energy. It just observes. Shocked, the old woman says it is not just a body with pure yang energy. Crying, she says it is the supreme body, of which she has only heard in legends. The daughter of the Zhao family is too lucky, which made the old woman literally envious. What happened that night must be kept confidential. Anyone who leaks this information would be severely punished. Thinking, the gray-haired woman imagines that Yu Tong will not resist his body. They leave there on her motorcycle. The young man wants to confirm if there was really something in the tea, and the blonde says that woman wouldn't dare do anything against her. And since she didn't go after her, it means it wasn't anything serious. As she was distracted, her eyes widen at the image in front of her. An unhappy dog passes in front of her motorcycle. To avoid hitting the animal, she makes a risky maneuver, as she preferred to risk her life and her boyfriend's rather than the animals. In light of this, she can only see Lin Mo flying through the air, but she manages to grab his arm. The two end up falling to the ground. The blonde ends up on top of him, and the young man asks if she could get off him. Worried, she wants to know if he got hurt, but he's fine, as motorcycle falls only hurt in real life. He looks intrigued at the blonde's hands, which, throwing snow in his face, suggests they have a snowball fight. The poison she took causes some effects. Childish behavior is one of them, along with facial flushing and extreme warmth in 9 out of 10 cases. A poison that removes behavioral filters, making the victim susceptible to bullying or having very lewd behavior. Thinking about this, he observes that monument of a woman who can't wait to sit on his face. Then, he agrees to play a little, as long as they don't take too long. This reminds him of the past when they asked him to play all day. Normal people can take a break, but since he is a cultivator, he shouldn't. She knows that with demons around, she wouldn't do that. In fact, she has been waiting and waiting for him all this time. She is upset. He is still not an immortal emperor, but the elders say he has the potential for it. The girl wants to know how long it will take him to reach that status, until he achieves immortality, lives in paradise, becomes emperor, and ends the demons. Anxious, she would really like to know how long it will take him. 1,000 years. 10,000 years. If that's the case, it's possible the world will end long before. Moreover, it's possible he will never marry a mortal like her. All she wants now is for him to dedicate half an hour of his day to play with her in the snow. Then, she apologized for putting him in a complicated situation. She asked him to go on and be the hero he wanted to be. Maybe in another life, they could meet again, who knows? For she will continue to bother him so that he enjoys the snow with her. The monstrous sword says that this generation of cultivators is stupid. He shouldn't have given that place to weak mortals. Since the Demon King doesn't care, he will destroy that place. The girl crawls. The air is so heavy that she can barely breathe. As soon as he gets close to her, the monster sword strikes her hard, but the Emperor had appeared to protect her. Irritated by what he had done in that place, he strikes with his sword. The monster was annoyed because even being a demon sword, they sent a rookie to deal with her. He says that his brothers will arrive soon, and the sword won't be able to escape. But the demon sword wants to know who is faster, him in dying, or his brothers in getting there. The battle continues violently amidst the burning village. A single blow had been devastating. Then he realizes that there is something worse than his wounds. The girl he had protected is now flying through the air. It's too late. The demon sword longs to take his life. But then he notices that something is happening there. His feet are being grabbed, and the monster tells the rookie that he has been deceived. All his attention was focused on that woman, and now he is unable to move. His fatal blow would kill him, but the woman places herself in his way. He is shocked as she dies in front of him. The monster raises his hand, with her body trapped in his claws. Shaking her, he throws the body aside as if it were nothing, and says that now it's the rookie's turn. However, he cannot complete his execution. The venerable demon is summoning him, and he wonders if his master knows about his unauthorized actions. Irritated, the emperor wants to know if he is a lackey of the venerable demon. Whether he is or not, it is too bold of the rookie to ask him that. He should be grateful to the venerable demon, for thanks to his call, he is now a hero of the immortals. He turns to Ying, for he is in shock and wants to know if she is okay. Barely able to speak, she says that the boy has returned. She wants to know if it is really him, for she can no longer see anything. Crying, she says that it is indeed him, asking only for her to hold on a little longer, for his brothers are already coming. But she can't take it anymore, and asks him to listen to her. Behind the bamboo forest, on the edge of the cliff, he will need to go alone, but hopes that in his next life she can accompany him. Her last words to him were an apology. The fire continues to consume the forest amidst the mourning that the emperor felt. The future demon king tells her father that the sword is problematic and that it is only a matter of time before greater consequences arise. He could not continue to shelter something so problematic. She should learn from it. It is not bad to kill and destroy. But her father simply gives her a severe slap across the face. Killing insignificant people or killing bandits is the same thing. Her weakness will cost everything for which her ancestors fought, and perhaps she will not be the next venerable demon. He remembers her request, for it was snowing, and how he never had time for that, until his eyes land on something. Looking at the moon, he remembered what she said, that if he kept practicing, he would have gray hair. His memories make him cry, mourning. She told him to be a hero, so they could meet in the next life. Now who stands before him is the blonde. But he remembered the promise of his first love, that she would continue to bother him to play in the snow with her. All he wants is to stop lamenting and to stop making the same mistakes. The blonde looks at the screen intrigued. She ended up encountering something unexpected. She needed to read that carefully. Wei Qin had made an attempt on her own life and was successful in it. She lamented for that woman. Soon after, another message appeared on the computer. The person was not well and is canceling that game team. Now she is furious with Han Xinyi. All of this is surely her fault. If it weren't for the blonde, she and Xinyi wouldn't have ended up in this situation. Almost losing her senses, she laments for Wei Qin. Meanwhile, the ominous woman wants to know what will happen if the blonde stops living right there. But she apologizes, for she didn't imagine that her family would put so much pressure on her because of a tournament. Then another person appears before her, saying that this is not true. It is not just about the game. She wants to know how Han Xinyu is there. Stabbing the knife into her chest, she asks if she really wants to know how. Because if that's the case, she should think better about the matter. The truth about the matter. Are you sure she will eventually find the answer? Clapping her hands on the table, the blonde asks her to wait. But now she is alone in the classroom. The girl with blue hair appears and says it's lunchtime and asks if the blonde has eaten. Approaching her, she wants to know where Lin Mo is, and the girl says she knew this would be asked and got ahead of it. He is on the terrace and he is not alone. This made her jealousy grow. Seeing the blonde leave, she asked her not to get into trouble. She doesn't want to believe that someone like Xinyi is interested in someone of the opposite sex. Besides, she has never heard anything from her about the subject. She wants to see with her own eyes what they are doing up there on the terrace. Her eyes are in shock. Apparently, what they say is true. The two are up there, playing chess. She approaches the girl and says everyone at school knows she likes Lin Mo, but it seems she doesn't realize it. She says they have been playing there every day since they met, and that everyone at school knows this, except her. The blonde is deeply irritated. Since she is there, she has something to ask her. Something related to her older sister, but the brunette says that this question doesn't make sense, as neither she nor the blonde's older sister has anything to discuss with her now. She knows she is guilty, but she just wants to know why she hates her so much. Thus, the brunette moves even closer to her. She said, staring at her, that the blonde knows nothing. Curious, she wants to know what she doesn't know and asks her to tell her quickly. If she liked Wei Qin so much, she should look for him on her own. With her current strength, it shouldn't be hard. The blonde says if this is a bad joke, she will make her regret it. Touching Lin Mo's shoulder, she asked him to accompany her. She could play with her, as she is also good at it. But the brunette held the blonde's arm in the meantime, leaving Lin Mo and the blonde perplexed. She doesn't want the tradition of games between them to be broken, and that the blonde was being too friendly with him. Then the blonde says she is his girlfriend and wants to know what the brunette is, and she says she is the only one at his level in that game. Standing up, he says he belongs to no one, and if they intend to talk, he will leave. Before he could leave, the blonde grabs him by the arm. Since he was going to leave, he would go with her. Finally, he tells Yutong that she is being very childish. She says he could go and tell the teacher then, but the blonde doesn't know why she feels this way every time she sees Lin Mo with that woman. Then Xinyi grabs her by the arm, causing the blonde to become immediately furious. It's the second time she has held her like this. The brunette wants to know if this is a problem, as she doesn't care at all. Outraged, the blonde says she already told her she likes Lin Mo. Burning with jealousy, she wants to know if she wants to steal him from her. Then the brunette says she is already fed up with the blonde harassing a guy like him. Manifesting her aura, she says she won't repeat it, and it's best that she lets go of her immediately. This makes Jinyi irritated, as the blonde is just a daughter of destiny, or whatever that is. Only the blonde's irritation keeps increasing. Her aura grows even more, as she is upset that an ordinary girl wants to compete with an immortal. Thus, her energy keeps manifesting more and more. However, she begins to have a peculiar impression. Her hand is now embedded in a huge rock. It was as if she were staring at a massive mountain. She can't move a muscle, and doesn't know how this is possible. Knowing the brunette for a long time, she can't believe she could also be an immortal. Now she watches her with much more curiosity. Nearby, Lin Mo realizes that things are complicated. Now he is the one who doesn't believe who Xinyi really could be. After the incident, the blonde rides her motorcycle, deep in thought. It doesn't make sense for Xinyi to be a cultivator, however she will now focus on discovering the truth about what really happened. On the phone, someone says they got the recording she requested, and that the incident involves. But she interrupts him and quickly asks for the video to be sent to her. Until then, there was nothing suspicious in the recordings, and she suspected nothing. As your luck has increased, that dream must have a meaning, and now you need to see it through to the end. Watching the video, he noticed something. That is the building near where the accident happened. In the recording, Tianyu can be seen walking, and he remembered the veiled threat he had heard from her. Tianyu is attacking mortals again. This time she won't forgive her. Inside a club, guys say it's a privilege to be with the immortal from the Yang family. Focused on her phone, she asks them to interact with each other and not to bother her. It seems that her mind is elsewhere now. From what he researched, Lin Mo is an ordinary person and suspects that her past may have been hidden, a supreme body of pure Yang energy. This makes her furious that the blonde managed to get something so good. A strong impact occurs at the door. It was the blonde who had just arrived, full of rage. The blue-haired guy wants to know what brings her to that place. She slams her hand on the table with the recording. There's something she wants to ask Tianyu. The gray-haired woman says that her family members don't change and that the blonde has never had manners. Then, she orders her lackeys to leave. Only the women and the blue-haired guy remain. The blonde wants to know why she was with the girl that day. She looks cynically down, says she doesn't know what the blonde is talking about. Since she doesn't want to tell, she will refresh her memory. In the past, Wei Qin was part of her team, and they made it to the spring selection finals. The team they defeated in the final was called Heaven's Gate. The gray-haired woman wants to know if she should be impressed by now. Furious, the blonde tells her not to lie, because she knows that the leader of that team was her, Tianyu. Filled with envy, she hurt Xinyi and killed Wei Qin. She did this just to jab at the blonde and satisfy that sick pride she has. Then she puts her hand over her mouth mockingly. She sighs at her after hearing all that. Soon she starts to smile uncontrollably. But the subject is serious, and the blonde wants to know what she is smiling about. She said that Yu Tong is really very cute. Then she patiently lights a cigarette. At that time, she was bored and formed a team that ended up losing in the finals. She knew nothing about the other team and just found out that it was the blonde's team. But if she had known it was her on the other side, she certainly wouldn't have missed a second opportunity. The blue-haired guy says that the gray-haired woman is from a traditional family of immortals and wouldn't waste time on such trivial matters. Since she was bored at the time, she just wanted to walk a bit. That doesn't mean anything. And she doesn't recognize that girl. Being in the same recording as her is just a coincidence. Taking the phone from her hands, the blonde questions if it was really just a coincidence. They entered the building together and left after Wei Qin jumped from there. That's not a coincidence. But the gray-haired woman says that many people passed by there. Assuming she has something to do with it is hasty. However, if she wants to fight, she can go ahead because she's not afraid of her. This time she will take it seriously and won't hesitate for a second, so it's best if she leaves before she gets angry. Furious, the blonde gives a strong kick to a nearby object. She asked the girl to repeat what she said, and the blue-haired guy had to hold her back. He said he would let her live today, as a symbol and gratitude to her father. But as soon as he finds the evidence he needs, he will destroy her and her whole family. After saying those words, he started to leave that place. The guy says that Yu Tang is very impulsive, but what she said is serious. With a cold look, the gray-haired woman wants to know if he doesn't believe her. That's not what she meant, but it has been a tumultuous year, and it's not wise to make the family that supports them the most angry. Continuing to smoke, she says he could go and doesn't need to wait for her. So he leaves, saying that they are all rude. The girl was left alone in the room with her cigarette. Making a call, she ordered them to find out who leaked the recording and that the person responsible should be killed immediately. After saying this, she slammed her phone on the table. Indeed, she is envious of the blonde, but she doesn't mind killing a few mortals now and then, but this time she will do it simply, brutally, and without scruples. She will kill the blonde once and for all. In a restaurant, he looks at the waitress. She seems to be presenting the options to him. Looking at the fried crabs on display, Lin Mo says she had ordered that. In response to what he said, the girl confirms that it is indeed that. Lin Mo wants to know why he received something different then. He said it's a special menu produced by the blonde, and the cook had never seen so many refined ingredients in her life. For Lin Mo, that is completely unnecessary. Next to him was the blonde, who, upset, said she heard what he said. She said that it's a delicacy that comes from afar, and she would like him to help identify the ingredients. Since she asked for his help, Lin Mo will submit to that. With an enthusiastic clap, she was very happy about it. The blonde told the cook to get the other dishes, as her friend won't eat there. Knowing that Lin Mo likes to eat in peace, she set aside an empty room for him to have his meals. In response, he simply said that the blonde doesn't need to do pointless things anymore. In light of this, she grabs him by the arm and he looks at her from the corner of his eye. That is not pointless for her, as it is a gesture full of meaning. As she is madly in love with him and hopes to deflower him one day, it is indeed full of meaning and countless intentions. Hearing these words, he was a bit surprised, but soon gave her a discreet smile. Since it's like that, it's all good for him. As Lin Mo walked away, the blonde noticed a pair of feet approaching. Immediately, she was surprised by what she saw. It was the brunette who was inviting Lin Mo to play once again. Then she steps between them, asking them to start in the room she reserved for him, and if he wanted to play with someone, it could be with her. Seeing this, the brunette says that the blonde is always like this, imposing, carefree, and enjoying causing problems for others. She extended her hand and asked him to look around. There are several students there watching what happens, as gossip at lunchtime is delightful. She said she did all this for Lin Mo to be at peace, but all she managed to do now is bring even more attention to him, not to mention that her body was hurt because of the blonde. After hearing this, she shouted that it was already enough. She chased the onlookers away, saying they hadn't missed anything there and didn't need to keep watching them. After that, she sighed deeply. Finally, she said she analyzed her problem with her older sister and knows she made them suffer. She is aware that she got her into trouble and understands that she might be hated by her, but there's no way she will hand Lin Mo over to her rival. Neither does the brunette want to give up her gaming partner. While the two argue, Lin Mo announces that he is leaving. The truth is that he is thoughtful about the nature of the brunette. Seeing him leave, the blonde tries to make him stay. However, the brunette stretched her arm in front of her, asking her not to cause any more problems for Lin Mo. Yutang says she doesn't care if she is a cultivator too, but she shouldn't use the game as an excuse to be with him, and if she likes him, fine, but she shouldn't interfere. But if she is approaching Lin Mo just for revenge against the blonde and to hurt his feelings, things would get complicated for her. But that's not quite what happens. Completely blushing, she says she doesn't like him. They are just gaming partners and nothing more. Hearing this, the blonde releases the brunette's collar. Since she is honest and has good intentions, the blonde will let it pass, making it clear that she is not competition for her, as the blonde can offer everything, and she would like to know what the brunette can offer Lin Mo. Without hesitation, she says she can play with him, which ended Yutang's argument. Bringing her hands to her head, she says she can't deal with this anymore. Now she is alone on the terrace without her friend. She extends her hand over the board. Playing alone is definitely very boring. She played alone for decades, but this time, it was the most boring session of her entire life. She looks intently at the terrace door. After what happened, he still hadn't arrived, and she remembered what the blonde said to her about what she could offer Lin Mo. Indeed, she doesn't know how to answer that. All she can offer is a cold terrace and a game of chess. As she regained some of her strength, the cold doesn't bother her, and Lin Mo is just a mortal and has played with her in the cold without caring. This left her in shock, as the venerable demon is caring for a mere mortal. But as a demon king, if she takes the world for herself, she could offer everything to Lin Mo. While she was daydreaming, she heard the door open. Immediately, she went to see if it was Lin Mo arriving, but there was only a little creature there. She doesn't know what to think. The cultivators there are weak. The only dangers are the immortal emperor and the demonic sword. On the ledge, she thinks a little more. In thousands of years, she has never felt this way, anxious, and wants to know if he went to the room that Yutang managed to get into. Then she imagined that the young people of this time are sensitive, and that maybe he went there because of what happened earlier. However, she doesn't know why she is thinking so much about him, as he is just a gaming partner. What the blonde said to her left her thoughtful. She doesn't like him, and hopes Lin Mo doesn't misunderstand her about that. So she decides to explain herself soon, so he won't have any misunderstandings about what she feels. As soon as he answers the phone, she introduces herself. He said he knows she is a good girl and will find someone better, and hung up the call. That was definitely not what she expected. Throwing her phone on the ground, she said he should listen to people before jumping to conclusions. Embarrassed by the situation, Han decides to look for the guy to clarify things. She thinks she let herself be swayed by Yutong's words, trying to convince herself that she doesn't like Lin Mo. Walking down the hallway, she spots the blonde's friend. Han approaches, asking if the girl knew where the young man was. Irritated, the girl starts to say she didn't know, but suddenly has an idea. She says she saw the boy playing basketball on the school court, and if Han wanted to find him, she should run. Han is incredulous at the information since basketball is not something he would play. However, the blue-haired girl replies that she didn't care if Han believed her or not, quickly leaving. The brunette crosses her arms, finding it suspicious, but decides to go anyway. Some students were practicing on the school court. The girl searches for Lin Mo. Suddenly, she spots Yutong playing. The blonde makes a basket, being praised by her peers. Han is indignant at the blue-haired girl's lie, but decides to ask her rival directly. At that moment, some girls pass by moving furniture from the sports club. Yutong notices Han's presence. The girl stares at her, asking where the young man was in a very direct manner. Spinning the ball on her finger, the blonde replies that she doesn't know and questions if he hadn't gone to play Go with her. The brunette shrugs, ignoring Yutong, until someone shouts for her. At that moment, the ball is thrown with all its force in her direction, but she stops it with her hand. Han asks if the blonde wanted to say something to her. Spontaneously, the girl invites her to play since she was around. The brunette throws the ball, saying that would be boring. She adds that the game was very childish, just putting a ball in the basket to win. Yutong watches the thrown ball, becoming shocked when the ball perfectly hits the basket. Han asks what was so funny about that. Indignant, the blonde says that just because she made the basket doesn't mean she is good, questioning if the girl was afraid to face her, adding that a refined girl like Han only knew how to play Go. Yutong tells her to go away, leaving the brunette irritated. Turning her back, Han thinks that the rival was just the daughter of the heavens. Angry, she questions how the blonde dared to provoke her so many times. With a smile, Yutong teases, asking if she didn't like what she had said. Han stares at her, saying that whoever scores a basket would be the winner. Conceited, the blonde says that if she won, the rival would never play Go with Lin Mo again. Offering a deal, she adds that if she lost, she wouldn't interfere in their game again, and the brunette agrees. Some boys approach to bet and film the girls' clash. Yutong asks if her opponent would play wearing the uniform or if she wasn't taking it seriously. Han arrogantly replies that only those who were worth it deserved a change of clothes. Taking the ball in her hand, she said that obviously that wasn't the case for her rival. At that moment, the girls moving the club's furniture asked for permission, passing by with a table. A nail from the transported furniture ended up falling on the court floor. The sharp tip shone without anyone noticing the danger. Han takes the initiative, announcing the start of the game, but Yutong asks to add one more condition. Neither of them could use their immortal powers to avoid causing problems for the civilians. The brunette reassures her, saying that wouldn't be necessary to defeat a novice. The blonde warns that whoever uses it would be disqualified. Han passes the ball to Yutong to start first. The girl approaches her opponent, bouncing the ball on the ground. She says to watch how she would finish off her enemy. The brunette remains still, leaving the blonde confused. With a quick movement, she dodges Han. The blonde bounces the ball on the ground near her stationary rival and quickly advances toward the basket. Some students in the crowd recognize that movement as Yutong's lightning zigzag. With a smug expression, the girl thinks it would be an easy victory, but she soon realizes that the ball was no longer under her control. She turns around, wondering when her opponent had intercepted the ball. Confident, Han says there was no need to switch between defense and attack. She throws the ball forcefully toward the blonde, urging her to keep attacking. Smiling sadistically, the brunette says she would play with her until her last breath. The excited crowd cheers for Yutong. The blonde admits she was careless and says this time she will get serious. She moves like lightning, leaving Han behind. The audience is thrilled by the movement, which was even faster than the previous one. The girl jumps to make the basket, but a blur appears near her. Yutong is shocked when her rival jumps even higher, preventing her from scoring. Han steals the ball again. The blonde is incredulous about how her opponent managed that. The two land on the court floor. The brunette taunts, asking if the rival wanted to try again. Filled with rage, Yutong asks to go again. She bounces the ball cautiously while Han remains still. The girl remembers that her opponent wasn't that powerful before, doubting that this was really Han Si-yin, but she soon decides to focus, realizing she would need a strategy. The blonde bends her knees, and her enemy wonders if it will be a direct shot. Han jumps to block the throw, and Yutong seizes the opportunity to advance. Deceiving the brunette, she comments that her rival was naive. Han runs to catch up with her, and the blonde jumps, ready to score. The brunette doesn't give up and charges at full speed. Jumping to block her opponent, she hits the ball hard, causing Yutong to fall. The crowd is shocked by the block, commenting that the blonde must have gotten hurt. Han speaks with superiority, telling her rival to admit defeat because she was no match for her. Getting up, The blonde refuses to accept that she lost. But the opponent asserts that it didn't matter how many times, the result would be the same. She said the difference between them was power, ordering the girl to give up. Filled with rage, Yutang makes a strong throw, sending the brunette to hell. Han turns, barely having time to react. The blonde runs past her, the ball bounces around the basket, and the girl realizes Yutang's plan. She manages to reach the blonde, but the rival pushes her aside. The brunette ends up stepping on a nail that had fallen. She runs to stop the attack but finds herself at a disadvantage, reflecting that this was the difficulty of facing the daughter of destiny. Yutang jumps higher than the block. Angrily, she shouts for her rival to get out of the way, unconsciously activating her powers. She slams the ball into the basket with all her strength. Han falls backward to the ground as some shards of glass hit her. A crowd buzzes with the scene, the blonde standing in front of the destroyed basket and her fallen adversary. Yutang steps back, admitting that she lost. Some boys rush to help the brunette, saying she should go to the infirmary, but she says she's fine and it's just scratches. At that moment, the girl starts to bleed, and the boys urge her to go to the infirmary. They say if she doesn't, they will call for emergency services. Han remembers the embarrassment she felt earlier when she broke her ribs, and she agrees to go with them while everyone comments on how she was able to walk with those injuries. Some boys find Lin Mo eating alone in a room. They tell the young man what happened between the girls on the court. One of them mentions that Han was in the infirmary and that he should see her, but he refuses. The boys are outraged, saying everything happened because of Lin Mo, and he should take responsibility. The young man gives a cold look, frightening his peers. They back away, saying they did their part by telling him, and whether he goes or not is his choice. Irritated, Lin Mo reflects on whether he should go or not. Suddenly, the doctor opens the infirmary door and, seeing the young man outside, says he can come in to see the girl. Reluctantly, he enters, deciding that since he was there, he would talk to Han. He starts the conversation by saying he heard she got hurt, but soon he stares with wide eyes. The girl turns around, embarrassed, with her shirt open. Han, with a flushed face, looks at the young man. She apologizes for the misunderstanding with Yutang, but didn't like how she made him seem like a weak man. The young man gets irritated by these words. He says she was an opponent worthy of him and wouldn't want her to think like the other girls. Han asks if she was like the girls who only wanted his body. Lin Mo remains expressionless, and the girl jokes that she should have taken a picture of his face. Removing shards of glass from her thigh, she says she wasn't like the others. With a red face, he couldn't control his expression and heartbeat in the presence of a naked girl. The young man asks if she was pretending to be strong since the girl winces in pain while removing the glass. With veins bulging in her face, she replies that she certainly wasn't. The boy says she wasn't very good at bandaging since the wounds were getting worse. He offers to help since he knew a bit about medicine. Han tries to dismiss him, but the young man bends down to check the wounds. Removing the splinters, he instructs the girl not to move. The girl shivers in pain as the young man carefully pulls out the shards. Lin Mo mentions there was a lot of broken glass in her leg, and warns that he would remove them, disinfect the wounds, and bandage them so she wouldn't have scars. The afternoon passes until he finishes bandaging her leg. With the measures he took, the treatment would be temporary. The boy says he would now treat the girl's back and rear. Han gets alarmed, but he asks if something was wrong or if she wasn't in pain anymore. Embarrassed, she says she would take care of that herself. The young man says she wouldn't be able to do that and that she didn't need to worry because he would help. She insists she would do it alone, thinking it would be impossible to show her rear to a boy. Lin Mo tells her to take off her clothes, leaving her flustered. She hesitates since she was already wearing little clothing. Suddenly, she has a thought and, blushing, asks what his intentions were. The boy reassures her that he wasn't interested in her, just wanted to treat her wounds. She says it was just a small scratch and not worth all that trouble. In a serious tone, he asks her not to waste his time and to just turn around. In his view, she was just a whiny baby who didn't want to take medicine, and he scolds her for behaving like a child since she was a mature woman. Blushing, she says it wasn't for that reason, and asks him to turn around while she takes off her clothes. The young man agrees and turns his back to the girl. Han tells him not to look, and the boy reaffirms that he wasn't interested in her. She warns that she has taken everything off, and Lin Mo starts to close the curtains while she screams asking why. The young man explains that after class, many students passed by and could see her like that. He instructs her to lie face down on the stretcher and not to think about nonsense. Han obeys and says she is ready. On her back there were more glass fragments embedded. The boy puts on gloves, announcing that he would begin. Seeing the girl lying down, he wonders if there was no sense of shame in this world. Lin Mo then starts to remove the shards using tweezers. The girl is surprised that he is not only good at gaming, but also at bandaging. Not even a demon witch would be so talented and kind. The young man removes the glass splinters, placing them in a container. The next steps would be applying medicine and putting on bandages. Fortunately, she was a cultivator. Otherwise, She wouldn't get out of bed for an entire month. The day comes to an end, and the boy announces that he has finished the bandaging. But he notices that the girl has fallen asleep. In a bad mood, he takes off his blazer, covering Han with the coat. As he heads for the school exit, someone calls his attention, referring to him as Yutang's toy. The gray-haired woman says it's late and offers to take him home. The two stare at each other in the middle of the street. With empty eyes, the woman proposes a game of cat and mouse. She explains that the boy would be the mouse and should run as fast as possible. Yang would be the cat and would look for him, but when she found him, she would leave the young man in pieces. Threateningly, she says she would cut his body into pieces and send one by one to Yutang. This way, the blonde would be anxious to receive a piece of Lin Mo every day. With a relaxed expression, she wonders how long it would take to capture him. She touches the boy's shoulder, whispering in his ear to run because she would hunt him starting that night. The boy walks away, and Yang tells him not to stress too much. Watching him leave, she says she would make Yutang pay for what he had done to her. Lin Mo walks expressionlessly. He was upset that the immortal world had no way out. The young man reasons that an ordinary person like Yang Tianyu did not inspire fear, but if someone made her angry, she would not rest until she got her revenge. He looks at a men's clothing store, thinking it would be difficult to hide his identity amidst that chaos in the immortal world. The salesman welcomes him. Remembering Yang's touch on his shoulder, he decides it would be better to change clothes. The woman had placed a mark on him, and to avoid exposing who he was, he could not erase it. After some time, the young man summons the fox Chen. Immediately, the little fox responds to the call, and Lin Mo instructs her to throw the old shirt as far away from home as possible. Irritated, the young man hopes it was just a prank because if she tried something, he would destroy her. In the school infirmary, Han stands up holding the young man's jacket. In all her years of battles, she had never been so careless as to sleep in someone's presence. The girl blushes, thinking that now she owed him another favor. Suddenly, she remembers Yutang questioning what she had ever done for him. Han thinks about inviting him to dinner since he liked delicious food. She decides to research how to invite a boy to dinner in that world. Soon after, she feels embarrassed because the Demon Queen owed favors to a teenager. Lin Mo's jacket catches her attention. The girl notices that the piece had a nice scent. Han throws herself on the bed, burning with embarrassment. She lamented that there were so many rules in that world. Even the rules of the demon world were not so complex. Determined, the girl summons a copy of herself. Han orders her clone to practice the entire process of inviting him out. The copy says she understands, but she still hadn't reserved the restaurant or confirmed the time and place. The girl tells the clone to call Lin Mo and invite him to dinner, but the copy retorts why she had to do that. Han explains nervously that he had seen her without clothes and healed her wounds, and she had no decency to call him. Understanding the situation, the clone immediately calls, leaving the girl shocked by her directness. She trembles with nerves while the clone talks to the young man. The copy coldly states that she would like to pay for dinner since she didn't like owing favors, leaving the girl desperate. Han hears the clone arrange to meet the young man after class and feels excited. Finally, the copy says he accepted, and Han jumps for joy. The girl's family scolds her for shouting since it was already late, and she composes herself. The girl asks for the phone back to make the reservations. She sighs before dialing. With a threatening aura, she makes the call. The copy watches in shock at the mood change while the girl talks to Shen. She orders him to make the reservation at the restaurant and choose the chef and ingredients since she invited someone important. The boy asks what quality category she wanted for the food, and promptly Han chooses the best. She instructs that all the ingredients be on display and that the chef cooks live, serving the dishes himself. Han says she wanted to see what the best chef of the clan could do, and Shen promises to do his best. The girl sighs as she finishes the call, and she calls the copy to rehearse. On the phone, someone asks Shen if he is sure he wants the best chef of the clan. He immediately replies yes, as the Demon Queen herself had requested it. The person on the phone explains that all high-level cooks were important and would complain about cooking for her, but the boy asks them to understand that the situation was about the Demon Queen, and they had no right to doubt. He feels relieved to succeed since he had already failed in the beauty contest and wondered why she made such a fuss to have dinner with someone. Han throws herself on the couch, exhausted. She had rehearsed all the lines she would have during dinner all night. Her copy tried to reassure her, saying that practice was proof against foolishness, so she shouldn't worry. Agitated, the girl replies that there was no way not to worry, since it wasn't just any meal. At lunchtime, Yutang sat alone on a bench. She ate a snack, completely bored. The blonde lamented having gotten angry and used her spiritual energy, losing the bet with Han. Grumbling, she wondered why she had to be go, or if she could play with them, when suddenly she receives a call that she answers in a bad mood. She sarcastically says that Yu Tang has passed away and asks the person to burn incense for her. But the person on the line alarmingly warns that several bigwigs from the demon clan were gathering in the city. The girl questions what was happening and if her grandmother already knew, but the informant couldn't say. The blonde replies that if her grandmother couldn't return, she would handle the situation herself. Yu Tang gets irritated because she already had the emperor and the demon queen, and now the clan was causing problems too. Suddenly she spots Han and wonders why she isn't on the roof with Lin Mo. She stops the girl, asking where the guy was, but the brunette walks past, saying she didn't know. Indignant, Yu Tang says she should take advantage of having lunch with the young man. With a threatening aura, the rival responds that Lin Mo wouldn't play along with her to avoid suspicion. The blonde laughs and says she brought this upon herself. Han gets irritated while her chatty classmate thinks boys are sensitive. She ends up revealing that she was going to have dinner with the guy to provoke Yu Tang, and she leaves celebrating her victory while the blonde curses. After classes, the girl goes to investigate. Using an earphone, she requested information from the base support. The person on the line informed her that the demon clan had booked the entire hotel and they were all gathered there. Moreover, her classmates Han and Lin Mo were seen entering, but there were no further news about them. Determined, the girl gets on her motorcycle, saying she was on her way. Meanwhile, Lin Mo and Han were having dinner alone in the restaurant hall. The young man was delighting in the food, and the girl was happily cutting the meat for him. She offers the food she had cut to the young man. Lin Mo is surprised by the girl's good manners, considering her a polite and respectable person. He lamented having to hide his identity because he could take her as a disciple. With a flushed face, Han felt proud of having spent the night studying how to behave at dinner since the young man was easy to deal with. In the kitchen, a commotion was forming. The demon master commented that according to information, the girl was the queen of all demons. The queen of poisons warned not to look directly into her eyes to avoid death. The leader of the ghost division praised the queen for having Lin Mo in her hands as it would neutralize the daughter of destiny. The master instructed everyone to stop gossiping and help with the service, because if something went wrong at dinner, heads would roll. At that moment, Yang burst into the place, kicking the door. She approached the young man, saying she had found him, and calling him Little Mouse, while Han watched impassively. The girl began to lose her patience quickly. Suddenly, someone tapped the intruder on the shoulder. The master threateningly interrogated what the hell she was doing there. The woman recognized the division leader and became terrified. She started to have doubts upon seeing that the big shots of the demon clan were there. Wielding a cleaver, the man informed her that they were closed and asked her to leave. Trembling, Yang apologized and said she was mistaken. The master kicked her out of there. Through voice transmission, they instructed her not to run away and to wait until the guests finished eating. Yu Tang came running down the hallway. Seeing the girl on her knees, she asked where Lin Mo was. Traumatized, the girl replied that they were all there, and the blonde was confused by her state. The master turned to Han, apologizing for the interruption and promising that nothing would disturb them again. Soon after, Yu Tang entered the hall asking for the young man. However, her attention was captured by the chief, who asked if she had also entered the wrong room with a frightening aura. That night, a taxi was speeding through the streets. In the passenger seat, Yu Tang's major grandmother urged the driver to hurry. She thought that if the information was correct and all the high-ranking members of the demon clan were gathered, even she wouldn't be able to handle them all. However, Yu Tang and Yang had gone there of their own accord, so she had no choice but to negotiate. Looking around, she wondered if there were any guards since everything seemed normal, until something caught her attention. In a corner, her granddaughter and Yang were kneeling in silence. She asked what the two were doing there. The major scolded them, saying they looked naive and acting that way was a shame for cultivators. Hongling activated a spell, saying she had no choice but to go investigate, and the blonde was shocked to see her grandmother's adult form. Again, the chief apologized to Han for the interruptions, saying there wouldn't be any more. At the exact moment the major entered the room, the demon queen's patience completely ran out. The master tries to say that she had mistaken the place, but wonders why the major was there. Feeling Han's gaze, he tries to guide Hongling to another room, explaining that the hall had been reserved and hoping the major would accept the warning. But she asks why he is making that face, leaving him desperate that she didn't understand. She raises an eyebrow, saying she knew she couldn't reveal her identity, thinking that the clan also knew Lin Mo was the embodiment of pure yang. The grandmother observes the young man because her reason for coming there was to confirm something important. Lin Mo had been present at all the main events that had occurred. It was suspicious that the incidents happened around him, and the young man always managed to save himself from danger unless he was the immortal emperor. Last time, the demon queen had broken her sword in two. One part stayed with her, and the other was refined by the emperor, and now the fragment was drawn towards its master. She is surprised when the fragment flies from her hands, The Major wonders if the item just floated and disintegrated, but realizes that the fragments went to where the young man was sitting. The grandmother begins to conjecture that perhaps Lin Mo could be the emperor. The young man looks at her, signaling her to be quiet. As he does this, a black aura envelops him, and Hongling feels an enormous pressure confirming her suspicions. The Major confines Yutong in the second base of the Phoenix group to reflect on her actions. The blonde protests, asking how she could leave Lin Mo alone in that dangerous place, but the grandmother tells her to shut up. She orders Yutong to pay attention to her words, forbidding her from mentioning the young man or even getting close to him. As for Yang, the Major wouldn't confine her but said she was a disgrace to Yang Tianxi. The Major leaves, leaving the two alone. Yang arrogantly says that Lin Mo was destined to lose Yutong, and now whatever he decided to do with the young man was none of her business. The blonde retorts, asking if Yang thought she was worthy of the young man, and with a smile, the girl says it was clear she could win against someone like him, adding that was why she would destroy him. She taunts Yutang, saying she would kill him, and by the time she got out of confinement, it would already be the 7th day of his death. The blonde panics at the threat. Cursing, she scrolls through her phone contacts. The girl tries to contact someone, but the internet signal there was poor. With great difficulty, she manages to warn that Lin Mo was in danger, and asks Han to save him from Yang Tianyu because she was going to kill him. Upon hearing the blonde's words, Han becomes furious, breaking the phone with her hands. Yang finally arrived near the young man's house. In her thoughts, she hoped Lin Mo was ready to die. But suddenly, she feels that something is wrong. A murderous aura oppresses her. Yang disappears from the location instantly. Running, she thinks that if she had been just a little slower, that would have killed her, wondering whose aura that could be. She prides herself on her speed, which even the Major couldn't reach. Tears fall from her eyes because even at full speed, she couldn't shake off that suffocating feeling. Looking back, she wonders if the pressure has lessened. Upon reaching a forest, she thinks, relieved, that she managed to escape. Someone speaks to the girl, saying she looked tired and offers her water. Yang accepts because she was dying of thirst, but looking up, she feels fear again. Han was looking at her with red eyes and that threatening aura. She mocks Yang, saying the girl was so scared that she wet herself. The brunette lifts the enemy by the neck, threatening her. Desperate, Yang says she was the only daughter of Master Yang Tianxi and the heir of the Taoist sect of eternal life. Choking the girl, Han says she understands, adding that Master Tianxi would have to produce a second child.